Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What is going on, everyone? Happy Friday. One more time from Boston at the Four Nations Tournament. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Andrew Paterson with you, joined in just a moment by Michael Remis. This is going to be a fun one. Today's show, there were two scenarios, much like there were two scenarios last night between Canada and the United States. A victory, which would be one of the most important to Canadian hockey fans in certainly 15 years, and many would argue in decades, depending on your view of the situation, and a big party on WST. The other option was a devastating loss, one that would have stung as much as any. And this would have been a bit of a morgue. Good news. Canada still reigns supreme. They are the U.S.'s daddy when it comes to international hockey. And this is going to be one of the most fun shows we've maybe ever done. Listen, I know many of you have been with us all week long. I have been here all week. I've had the privilege to be at these games. And last night, I can tell you, I've been lucky. I mean, through work and whatnot, and just, being the fan that I am and traveling to stuff. I mean, I've been to a lot of really, really fun and really cool sporting events. Last night's number one, and it beats the Super Bowls. Certainly I look back at, being a Winnipeg guy, the Bombers Grey Cup, and certainly Winnipeg Jets playoff moments. This one was different because there was so much into it. And I tweeted before the game, and many of you regular listeners know I'm a pretty chill guy. I'm usually in great spirits, like having fun, certainly not into conflict. It was everywhere last night. And we got out of an Uber downtown a couple hours before the game, and we're walking around. And as I tweeted out, the mass holes were in full effect yesterday. And, guys yelling 51st State at us on the street and getting in our faces. And I had a level of anxiety and also legitimate anger going into this game. And I tweeted out beforehand, never needed a win more than last night. And thank God Connor McDavid scored what is the golden goal 2.0. I guess it is technically a golden goal. They did get gold medals, obviously not Olympic gold. But the Canadian men did it again to the United States and broke their hearts and broke the hearts of the vast majority of the fans that were in an electric TD Garden last night. And Canada is still on top. We have so much to get to. The game itself, everything around it, had an incredible experience afterwards, happening to, by chance, be in the same bar that the Canadian players, families, and friends were celebrating the win of the Four Nations. So we'll get to that. And I do, now that we kind of transition back to Jets season, with the Jets being the number one team in the league, in the Central, in the West, and have a game tomorrow against St. Louis, where they go from here. Now, the one thing I'll say right off the bat, the only thing that was missing last night, there were two things, frankly, from my perspective. Josh Morrissey and Kyle Connor. And we'll get to the U.S. side of things in a minute, because that was insane to not have Kyle Connor dressed for the game and to have Chris Kreider basically riding the bench while Matthew Tkachuk couldn't play as well, and essentially at 10 forwards through the final two periods in overtime. But I felt absolutely sick for Josh Morrissey. We were already there at the game. We got the notification that Josh wasn't going to be able to play. And I said to Jake and Dusty, if Josh Morrissey's not in this game, he must be on his deathbed. And, when the team won the gold medal and or were getting their gold medals and celebrating afterwards, this wasn't a matter of, he just wasn't enough to really be at 100%, was in the press box. He was nowhere to be seen. And the irony of afterwards, all of Team Canada being there, Josh not being there, and I'm pretty sure I was the only Morrissey jersey for Team Canada in the building, wasn't lost upon me, but just felt absolutely horrible for Josh that he wasn't able to be part of that game because he played so well up until that point and was such an important member of Team Canada. And on the Connor side of things, really disappointing for Kyle that he wasn't in. Turned out to be an absolutely terrible decision by Team USA. They decided to go with Chris Kreider ahead of Kyle Connor. They're in a game where the difference between winning and losing was so small. Didn't even play him. Tkachuk gets hurt. You don't think Kyle Connor's a guy? We all know he can manage a guy that's able to flip that game, and score a big goal at a big time. So we'll get into what this means for the Jets moving forward. And I wouldn't be surprised that when we're talking about Hellebuck, when we're talking about Kyle Connor, don't forget about Mark Scheifele, who should have been at this event in the first place, and Josh Morrissey, who missed his golden moment yesterday. The number one team in hockey, I think, might have a bit of a revenge tour going on. And wouldn't that be nice if this ended up with all of those guys finishing up their season with the ultimate prize, which, of course, is a great run through the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup. So we're going to get to all of that. Brandon Rewucki is going to jump on for a few minutes. We'll have Ken Wiebe, who's at Jets practice today. We'll get his thoughts on the tournament, as well as the latest on the club as they head to St. Louis for the game tomorrow. We're going to have Chris Pronger on the program, and what an incredible day to have Pronger on, a guy that knows a thing or two about these high-stakes games representing Canada, and a thing or two about overtime and the pressure that comes along with representing the Maple Leaf in international competition, especially against the United States. Hacksaw is going to jump on for a couple minutes. I think Jake Bolin Moss, my compatriot here with Coolbet, I think might pop by for a few minutes when we do the Coolbet lines and maybe stick around for the marble race as well. So this is going to be a good one. I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad you're all fired up. You know what? To get things going, can we see some Maple Leafs in the chat? Everyone that's with us on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up, please. Make sure you're subscribed, by the way. Hit that thumbs up, and let's just see the Canadian flag rolling up and down the YouTube chat right now here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. While you guys do that, a quick shout out to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at Coolbet. Week and trip of a lifetime for me. Incredible support of our program and the Lock Shop, and I couldn't be more appreciative of just the opportunity to be able to be here and obviously bring many of the sights and sounds of it back to our viewers and listeners in Winnipeg. Of course, Princess Auto, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizzas. The BPs were back in the city last night. Manitoba Battery, St. Vital Dental Center, Rollies Transfer. We'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray, fansfirst.ca, the Winnipeg Jets. And don't forget, tomorrow, final date for the Health Sciences Center Foundation auction. Link in the description of this video. Pinned tweet on my X account at Hustlerama. Would love to have you join me at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on, but make sure to check that out. Bidding closes tomorrow at 10 p.m. We'll also let you know about our watch party and whiskey tasting masterclass with Maker's Mark next Thursday at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. But let's get to it and welcome in Michael Remis. Remo, what a game, what a victory. I knew this was going to be fun, but how did you enjoy Canada's win in OT last night?
Yeah, it was incredible. I was fired up. It was an intense game, very tight checking, not a lot of room out there. And I thought Connor McDavid really struggled. There were times throughout the game hustle where the puck just couldn't get on his stick, receiving passes or off the boards. It just bounced off. But, I mean, what a way to end it where the best player somehow gets so wide open, the most room he saw all night in the slot, and puts one past Hellebuck. But I think us here and a lot of people owe Jordan Binnington an apology. He was sensational in that overtime, robbing Austin Matthews in close, multiple times robbing Brady Tkachuk, who was excellent in the tournament. This was such a great tournament, and we hadn't had best on best in 10 years, and to be cheering for guys like Brad Marchand or me cheering for Sam Bennett, who I have hated, watching his actions in the playoffs the last couple of years, and even, getting to know, breakout players like Thomas Harley coming in. This was awesome. We really missed this over the last 10 years, and it's so great that it's back and they have this international schedule. I think this is just the beginning of, the next phase of best on best international hockey.
Yeah, I mean, it was the perfect storm for the National Hockey League. And I don't know, I'm not sure we've heard any TV numbers, but I think they're going to be, pushing record-breaking. The Canadian number, does it get to the 2010 $16.6 million from Vancouver Olympics? I'm not sure. I would be surprised if we didn't set records for hockey viewing, at least in the past number of decades south of the border. I was looking at, some of like a Coolbet and some of the sports books, record handle on a hockey game, like rivaling an NFL game, which is the standard in the industry. Everyone was glued to that game last night, and Team Canada and Team USA delivered with incredible drama that was ended with Connor McDavid. You're right. McDavid did have a relatively tough night, and credit where credit is due. The way the United States defended Canada, preventing really the speed of McDavid and the speed of Nathan McKinnon, the two guys you have to be the most worried about when you go up against Canada, to really get going. But it just seemed like as the game went on, especially in overtime, once Binnington made those insane saves at the beginning of the period, Canada knew that they had the opportunity to win that, and it was probably going to be those top guys. And, it's funny, people don't want us talking too much Leafs. Austin Matthews, big game last night with, being a part of those first two goals. But then had to win the goal on his stick and was robbed by Jordan Binnington. And then it was Mitch Marner, who, outside of scoring the winning goal in overtime in the first game, which is kind of important, had seen himself fall down the lineup. He had a monster game yesterday. And, brilliant play, the spatial awareness that he has, the creativity to kind of spring Bennett to go in and roof that one on Hellebuck to tie the game was huge. And then, of course, who was there setting up McDavid for the big one last night? It was Mitch Marner. So, listen, there was a lot of winners in this game, individually and in this tournament. But at the end, only one team was going to win. That was Team Canada. But as we said, Remis, before, maybe the biggest winner through all of this is the sport of hockey, the National Hockey League, and the NHLPA, and really hockey fans, that we finally got to see this again. And it reminded maybe a whole new generation of how great that this can be. I don't think there's been a better example of that. These two games between Canada and the USA, arguably as good of games as we've ever seen played, with the speed and the skill of today's player and the superstars that were involved in the tournament.
Yeah, and seeing McDavid, Crosby, and McKinnon on the same power play, and Makar, great to see him in the lineup yesterday. It was like watching a dream. It was like watching a video game. I can't imagine what it was like for the goalies or the defensemen facing wave after wave of these guys, but they seem to manage. Under the total 5.5, only, goal scoring very limited with all these great players in the two games they played, and it was a dream finish where the NHL has, getting Canada and USA to have the two games. You have, the game Saturday in Montreal with the fights, but also just a well-played, fast-paced game. No time on there. Guys get pucks on their sticks and try to get a shot off. It's getting blocked or someone's getting in the lane. And again, last night, just what an atmosphere coming into the game in Boston. And you had all these great players, playing hockey the way it should be. And it was fantastic to watch, great TV product, but also you had Canada versus USA, the rivalry again. And, I think a lot of people, maybe there were players on the team from teams around the league that you don't necessarily watch. And I think you gained a lot of respect for guys like a Slavin or a Brandon Hagel, who was, a bit of a coming out party for them, while also allowing the stars like McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon to elevate themselves into a greater level here of fandom and just an iconic, not quite the Olympics. Us, McDavid's overtime winner, but still tournament overtime winner in a best on best Canada USA. Absolutely incredible. And yeah, I think it's we weren't really sure what it was going to be going in the tournament, but it lived up to and surpassed all expectations. It was so well done. And it was pretty cool seeing them lift the beautiful, beautiful looking trophy. They all lifted it.
Yep.
Took a small lap at the end, but
Hey,
it was
I just
great.
have to tell you, I don't know how much I'm sure they probably showed it all on TV. Watching it in the building and watching how that all went was fascinating in that Sid gets it first, cup winner. He hands it to Brad Marchand, who's a cup winner. He puts it up and does his little spin. He gives it to Drew Doughty. Same thing. Guys won the Stanley Cup. Give me that thing. You're going around. As it went to players that had not won the cup before, it seemed like they were a lot more hesitant to really get into the celebration with that piece of silverware. And no better example of that than Connor McDavid, who, of course, was one win away last year in the spring from winning the Stanley Cup for the first time. And I joked on the Lock Shop, I'm not sure if McDavid even got that thing to his shoulders or to his chin level. But it was a moment that all of those players worked so hard. And I think at the end, like, they got their gold medals and they got their team picture because no one had ever seen the trophy before. It was more, I think, relief for those guys that they stayed on top. They did it in such an important fashion for the country at a time when and when we as Canadians, I think, really needed that. And the dynamics on the ice afterwards of the celebration were really quite fun. But I can tell you, if you saw some of the videos that and the pictures that we put out, we stayed, until the end. Finally got out. All right, well, let's go. And needless to say, it wasn't quite as busy around downtown Boston than, say, if the United States had won. Although I wouldn't have wanted to have been hanging around downtown Boston if that was the case. But we went into a big place that we'd actually been in between the games on Monday, almost connected to the TD Garden. And a little bit later on, the next thing you know, there's the trophy. There's Sidney Crosby. There's Nathan McKinnon. And all of the friends and family of Team Canada were there celebrating. And I got to give a shout out at the end of the night. I was just kind of standing and then I hear this "Hustler." And it was a couple of young guys that are buddies with Seth Jarvis, I guess, that
Really?
had driven, that had driven 30 yards. I should get the picture. I've got it with you. I'll send it over to you.
Just text it.
But they were having a great time. They had been up with Seth and friends and family, and got a chance to live it. I mean, for those young men, that'll be an experience of a lifetime. I think for anyone with Canadian blood that was in and around that game watching it, you'll always remember it. And for those of us that were lucky enough to be there, it was great. And the one thing I will tell you, you can see
Look at this picture.
yeah. About half of those guys I bumped into at the end of the night. Sidney Crosby, and you can check out our socials. I've got a video of Sid with the trophy, kind of turning around and giving a view to the fans, and kind of saying hi to everybody with a little bit more hardware. Sid seemed to be around the trophy quite often. Not that he wanted to be, but it seemed like every single player and person wanted a picture with Crosby with that cup. So he was there for kind of back and forth quite a bit. I've got a really neat candid shot of the pride of Cole Harbour of Sid and Nate McKinnon at the trophy later on. But pretty magical stuff on the ice for Canadian fans wherever you were watching last night. And now we get back to business with the National Hockey League agreement. When I know I touched on this right off the bat, we'll talk about this with Brandon and with Ken. Every one of the Jet players, I think, leaves this with a little something to prove. I mean, Hellebuck was brilliant. I mean, hasn't been a single person that said, oh, he wasn't able to get the job done. Did Binnington steal a win? Maybe with a couple of those saves in overtime. But Hellebuck was Connor Hellebuck throughout. And there was no drop in his game in the big moment at all. But again, coming up short, I think he'll be incredibly focused to be on the right end of what happens. And obviously it's much different than a 2-week tournament. I mean, it's a 2-month grind with his club. Josh Morrissey missing the opportunity to play in the final. Kyle Connor being in the press box maybe more than anyone. And his line mate, Mark Scheifele, who didn't even get the opportunity to play in the tournament when he should have. I think we've got a great Winnipeg Jets revenge tour narrative going into these final 26 games, and most importantly, the Stanley Cup playoffs, Reem.
Yeah, we got a great super chat here from Stan Scott Hustler, who says, do you think this could affect Kyle Connor's confidence? I don't think so at all. I think if anything, it'll drive him to be a better player. We saw what it did for Mark Scheifele. He was out to prove everyone wrong there with Team Canada, who did not select him. But I think what you're seeing is Kyle Connor, they made an absolutely wrong decision. He shouldn't have been a healthy scratch. He should have been in the lineup. I thought when he had some touches in the other games, I thought he looked okay. He's got speed. He can keep up with the pace of that type of game. And, they made some mistakes. Tage Thompson could have been a player for that team. Cole Caulfield as well. Those are top American goal scorers who didn't make it. So I think if you're a Jets fan, the tournament went pretty well. I think Hellebuyck proved that he is the best goalie. While they didn't win, I mean, the goal that beat him was by the best player, like point blank shot, quick extremely quick release.
All alone, middle of the slot.
I mean, quick release. No one's pointing fingers at Hellebuyck for that one. What was the first one? McKinnon through traffic. I still don't even know how that got in. Like, he did not see that at all. And Sam Bennett was a really nice play by Bennett. I thought it was a nicer play by Mitch Marner on the zone entry to spring him
Big night
free.
for Mitch last night, as we talked about. Mitch, he takes a lot of heat, and historically he hasn't shown up as well in the biggest games. He did last night, and was a big part of it. But from a Jets perspective, and this will be something, as I said, I'm looking forward to getting into with Brandon and with Ken. Exactly what what might come out of this. Now, Reem, I can't see. Did you put clips in or?
Oh shit! Yeah, they're in. Sorry.
Okay, there we go.
I didn't hit a button to show.
Yeah, no problem. Let's just get a little bit of the sights and sounds of the event, and let's go down to 10. I mean, let's start off with Captain Canada, Sidney Crosby, whose contributions to Canadian hockey internationally is unmatched. We don't have enough time to go through everything that he's won for our country, but he did it again last night wearing the C. Crosby talked about how this compares to so many of his past wins, like a Stanley Cup, gold medal, Worlds, but this was a little different, but it's still another big one. Here's Sid.
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting that question a lot. I think with, a new event, new format, that sort of thing, it's hard, but, just talking about the level and, just how good every team is and how difficult it is in a short-term event like this to come together as a group and play the way you want to play and go through all that. I thought, it was an awesome experience. It's hard to rank it, but, still to be part of this group, find a way to win it. And the atmosphere and the environments that we're in between Montreal and here were incredible. And I think people, watching could feel how bad, everybody wanted to win and, what they put into it. So, it's hard to rank it, though, to be honest with you.
There is Sidney Crosby, the pride of our nation, the pride of Cole Harbour, along with Nathan McKinnon. I still can't believe both these guys are from the same small town outside Halifax. They were together quite a bit after the game last night, sharing in their victory. Here's Nate McKinnon on the win last night.
The Four Nations kind of caught on fire. I'm sure everyone didn't really know what to expect. Obviously, questions about it being an all-star game, things like that. Obviously, people didn't really know, the players' mindsets coming in, and rightfully so. You never really know, but, guys took this very seriously when you represent your country. Obviously, all the guys, egoless, selfless, really cool to be part of a group like that.
So there is Nate McKinnon. Now, the hero, and you knew that at some point last night he was going to make his mark, and he made it in the most impressive fashion possible, scoring the OT winner. Connor McDavid just talking about his level of excitement to be part of such a big game and a big moment, and obviously score the winner.
Really exciting. Just found a way. I thought that was, I thought everyone played solid. I wasn't great all night, but we just found a way tonight.
Can you describe the feeling, Connor?
Yeah, obviously it means a lot to our group. I think a lot of people were wondering if, what this tournament would mean to guys, and obviously you can see what it means to everyone on our side. It was, really exciting.
So there's Connor McDavid, and McDavid also talked about the incredible play of Jordan Binnington, allowing him the opportunity to score that OT winner.
Well, I've heard it time and time again. Binner's a winner, and that's ultimately what it is. He's won a big game in this building before, in 2019 there. So he's played in big moments. The moment doesn't get to him. He made probably 3 or 4, all-world saves early in overtime to allow us to score the goal. So all credit to him, honestly. Hopefully some of those haters will back off him, because honestly he played great.
I have a feeling many of the haters are backing off, eating their words, or just being happy that they were dead ass wrong about Jordan Binnington. And listen, it was absolutely justified to wonder whether Canada's goaltending could hold up. And, we spoke this week. I mean, every scenario was possible with Binnington. Could it have gone bad? Yeah. But he also had it in him to put together his greatest performance. And just like he did in Game 7 in 2019 to win the Stanley Cup on the road in Game 7. Here is Binnington. This is for Reem Binnington on the people that doubted him.
Yeah, that's what sports are about in some ways, and as an athlete and a competitor, there's always going to be that doubt, and you got to use that as motivation and find a way and believe in yourself to get the job done. And just being around these guys just these last 2 weeks I feel like it's elevated everyone's game, and just to how proud we are to be Canadian hockey players, and just finding a way to win with everything going on. And just stay with it is all I'll say.
Jordan Binnington, who's truly one of the stars of last night's overtime win. And just one more from Binner on just being a bit emotional during the press conference in the aftermath of the victory.
I think these are moments where it puts into perspective how much work you've put in and how many sacrifices people in your life have made for you, whether it's friends or family. And just having my dad here and looking up at him and my wife, and just what she does for my son, and just happy she was able to be here and she made it in last night. And it's just, she makes life so much easier for me and raising our boy. And these are just special moments where you really just get to, like I said, just, all the stuff behind the scenes that each and every one of us go through that no one sees. These are moments where it kind of shines through.
All right, so there's Jordan Binnington, who became Canadian hero in his own right last night with his performance, especially those saves in overtime. Obviously, there were winners, and then there were also losers. They were wearing stars and stripes. Brady Tkachuk had an unbelievable tournament. He is a guy that you would kill to have on your team, and he plays with so much emotion. He was emotional afterwards, and just talked about how much it sucked to lose in that fashion on home ice.
This sucks. I thought this team deserved more. We had chances there to finish it off. And this has been my favorite hockey memories, just playing for this team, playing with this group, and this is going to give us a nice motivation for years' time.
Can you describe the feeling when you scored that goal and just looked up to the crowd and did that big roar out?
I mean, this has been these atmospheres in Montreal, being the enemy there, but being here and not getting the cheers that usually get when we play here. And I mean, it was just an unbelievable experience. This whole week has just been such a memorable one, and something that I've learned so much personally, and just to be a part of this group and this team and be a part of USA Hockey has been better than I expected.
All right, so there's Brady Tkachuk. We'll have a little bit more. Ken's going to join us, but Brandon Rewucki's coming up. Just before we bring in Brandon, tomorrow is the final day to bid on everything in the Health Sciences Foundation Fund a Need auction, including the 3-day fishing trip out to the world-class Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, where I will be your host. We've got a couple bids already in on it. I'm sure they'll be bidding at the gala. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. is the cutoff. Now, if you do make a bid today, you will get notifications when there is another bid. The value on this trip is about $7,600. I believe the bid right now is just over $4,000. So you can maybe get an incredible deal and help a very, very important cause, adding new equipment to our emergency facilities at the HSC, which make life-saving differences to so many Manitobans. If you're listening on the podcast, there's a link in the description. You can also go to my Twitter feed. The X pin tweet at the top is the link to it. And if you're with us on YouTube, it's here as well. All the funds go to the HSC Foundation, which does so much important work here with the biggest and most important hospital in the city. And again, would love to have you out at Aikens Lake, which is paradise here in Manitoba, for 3 incredible days. So we'll get those bids in. And tomorrow night, 10 p.m., the final cutoff for the HSC Fund a Need auction. And we got 6 days until we're going to get together with many of you at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame for the Maker's Mark Masterclass. We had that incredible whiskey tasting event last year. It was so popular. We're doing it again in conjunction with the Winnipeg Whiskey Festival. Get your tickets now. Link in the description about the podcast and today's show. And again, we've only had 50 tickets. It's a much smaller group. Mike Adu will come in, fill us in on all about bourbon, and try some incredible, many limited editions you'll never have a chance to try somewhere else with us. Great charcuterie board. And we're going to be watching the Jets and Preds on the big screen. So if you missed it last year or you were with us last year, come on out and join us. A few remaining tickets. Click on the link in the description, and we will see you next Thursday at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. All right, let's get Brandon in here to kick things off. Chris Pronger still to come on the show. Ken Wiebe. I think Hacksaw is going to jump on. Jake Boland-Moss. We might go a little long today, but well worth it after such a big win for Canada. Brandon Rewucki joins us now. And Brandon, how did you enjoy last night's epic OT win over the United States?
Well, I enjoyed it by getting yelled at by the wife for waking up the little ones on 3 separate occasions, but what had to be done had to be done. That was, I mean, it was just magical. It was perfect. I can't help but notice we're in 2 different locations and the sun is shining ever so brilliantly. It just feels like life's a little better here. And it's interesting too, man, because I was thinking about this coming on. Yes, it's not a gold medal in the Olympics or anything like that, but that was pretty close to 2002, 2010 for me, as far as best Canadian hockey moments in my lifetime, at least. I'd probably put it ahead of 2014 even, just because that Canadian team was so dominant that the games weren't all that competitive.
The tournament was a dud. Sochi, they ran over them. I mean, the Swedes had like 12 shots or something in the final. It wasn't really close. Like, so much of it was the rivalry with the United States. What happened on Saturday night in Montreal. And then, as we've talked about it, so much noise and BS around Canada-U.S. relations that really all fed into it. Like Brandon, I mean, for the National Hockey League, it was the perfect storm. But I'm with you. And I don't know if you saw my tweet before. I mean, I'm walking through downtown Boston last night, and I've got these massholes in my face yelling 51st State. I mean, you know me, I'm a pretty chill guy. I was so wrapped up with anxiety and, to be honest, a lot of anger. I've never wanted a win more in anything than last night. And when they delivered, it was like, listen, to be fortunate enough to be in the building, to be a part of that was a moment that I'll never forget. But I think for any Canadian, and there were probably tens of millions of them watching that game last night, it was a cathartic release and a win that, with everything going on outside of hockey, we needed so badly. And Connor McDavid and Team Canada provided it.
Yeah. I think John Cooper said it best. It's just the country needed this. Like we needed something like this. And it's almost like we needed to avoid the loss more than we needed the win. Like I wouldn't have been able to handle the discourse for the next 72 hours at least if the Americans would have pulled that one off. And most of it not even centered around like the hockey world itself. So it was pretty much mandatory, and I think most Canadians would agree that Canada had to have this one. And it's going to be interesting moving forward too, with like the Olympics coming up soon and the other competitions in the next few years, that the Canadian Maple Leaf in hockey is taking on the same mystique, if it hasn't already, as Real Madrid in soccer. I'm thinking of the Yankees in like the 90s and 2000s, where there's certain uniforms in certain games that give you this unquantifiable boost and impact. And it provides an edge that really is difficult to explain. And I just can't help but think that played a part in them finding a way in overtime, right? And especially the fashion they did too, where the most maligned athlete in Canada over the last 2 weeks has the biggest 2-minute sequence of his life as Jordan Binnington keeps Canada alive. And then,
Is that
of course,
crazy or what?
Yeah, and then the torch gets passed as well, right? Like from Mario to Sid to now McDavid. Like there's just, it's almost something otherworldly that's surrounding Canada here that you wonder how that's going to play out in 2026 and then in the other tournaments in the years to come.
When you think back to the first game, Canada-Sweden, to kick things off, that was the Sid game. That was reminding everyone who has been and continues to be the most important figure in Canadian international hockey history ever. And it was unreasonable to think that it was going to be Sid that would be driving. If we wanted to win this gold and beat the United States, there were two players that we were going to look at that needed to be the alphas, that needed to be the guys that were the difference. It was Connor McDavid and it was Nathan MacKinnon. And last night, even in a game that McDavid did not, wasn't as dangerous as you'd like him to be, he scores the winning goal, the golden goal 2.0, if you will. And then Nathan MacKinnon, who scores to get the team on the board in the first period, is the tournament MVP. And in a lot of ways, there was a bit of an official passing of the torch internationally. And I know we talk about McDavid, but don't think that Nate MacKinnon isn't right there with him. Yeah. And as I was telling people earlier, we were lucky enough to be in this bar afterwards, and all of a sudden we realized, wait a second, this is the celebration of the Canadian team and the families and the players. And the amount of time Sid was near the trophy was noteworthy, not because he just wanted to be standing there the whole time, but like every guy on the team wanted to make sure, even in the midst of the celebration, wait a sec, I want to go over to that trophy and I want a picture with Sidney Crosby. And it was, I think it really encapsulates where we are as a hockey nation, moving past a really dark decade, to be honest. For Hockey Canada stuff, the fact that there wasn't any best on best, this team is still the number one team in international hockey. It was Crosby leading the way for so long, and I think over these last couple of days we've seen Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon kind of take the reins moving forward.
Yeah, it's 100% right, and especially in the context of those two American games, where look, let's face it, and it was pretty evident to anybody that watched it, like a new era is here, and Canada is still atop the hockey world, no doubt about it. But these have become coin flip games moving forward, right? Where it's, I think is it Bears Packers where they've played like 200 games and they're like 100 and 100 and
500
yeah, like,
exactly.
Something that's kind of the sense that I'm getting what it's going to be like moving forward. But with the Americans getting more elite talent and more depth of talent as well, the one edge Canada, I think, still holds is that their top dogs are better than your top dogs. And there was a chance maybe for Austin Matthews to to stake his claim to the current Mount Rushmore of best in the world. And he had a pretty impactful game, but it's going to be pretty notable that he didn't cash in on his two big chances in OT there. That might be Canada's one trump card moving forward in the next Olympics, is going to be that, hey, you might have more talent, you might have a talent edge in goal as well, but can you handle McDavid McKinnon? And the U.S. was pretty valiant in defending that for long stretches of time. But at least in this iteration of best on best, that ultimately saved the day for Canada. They came to play. It wasn't complete domination from start to finish, but like you said, when the moment was brightest and they needed them, both of them stepped up in the biggest way possible.
Dude, like that USA team is so good. I mean, no one's dominating that team moving forward. You knew it was going to be an incredibly razor-thin difference. And really the difference was Jordan Binnington making a couple of those saves, as well as in the third period, but particularly in overtime, that gave Canada the opportunity to stay in it, to finally get a chance so good that they could beat Connor Hellebuyck. Because make no mistake about it, this was not a game where he wasn't at his best. He was phenomenal. And if you leave Connor McDavid all alone, wide open in front of the net, he's going to score more often than not. And, it was so fast. It was on his stick. It was off of it. It was behind him. But, from a Jet perspective, like we can talk about the decision to have Kyle Connor in the press box might be the dumbest coaching decision that was made in the entire tournament. I mean, to do it in favor of Chris Kreider and play him all of 6 minutes while you have an injured Matthew Tkachuk that was unable to play more. They were 10 forwards. You don't think a guy like Kyle Connor couldn't have been a difference maker in that tight third period and overtime? Of course he could have.
Yeah, I think the big, and I'm honestly surprised more people aren't talking about this, and maybe it's just because the loss overshadows everything, but to me it wasn't even necessarily Connor versus Kreider. I just think that's a total me first move by Matthew Tkachuk to even put himself in that game. He knew he couldn't play. Everybody watching him knew he couldn't play. You knew he wasn't going to last the entire 60 minutes. And when was his last shift? Midway through the second? Like, you're talking about being, you're a man short for 40 plus minutes of that hockey game. If I'm Kyle Connor, I would have legit. It would be hard not to hold a vendetta against Matthew Tkachuk in that situation, because I think he 1,000% put himself ahead of his team and ahead of his country. And hey, maybe in a way that's, Canada kind of they hinted at that all along, right? And Hagel was maybe the guy at the forefront of that. Like, we do it for the country and not for the cameras. And I thought that was a camera move by Matt Tkachuk, where like if it was all about Team USA getting the win, Kyle Connor at 100% was going to give more to that team than Matthew Tkachuk at 20%, if he was even at that, right? So, I mean, questionable decisions, and this is what happens in these tournaments as well, right? When it's so razor thin, we wouldn't have heard anything about this if Auston Matthews buries one in OT, but that's ultimately what ends up happening there. I'm with you. I mean, I would have had Connor over Kreider, and I wouldn't have thought twice about that, especially with Jack Hughes' struggles in the tournament. But to me, I just think the Tkachuks did a lot of good this tournament, but I'd be pretty pissed off if I was a member of the American team. And I know Coach Sullivan was saying, oh, he's good to have on the bench, this, that. You know what's good to have on the bench? A 50-goal scorer who's actually your leading scorer in the NHL this season in a game where you absolutely need one more goal to win. I mean, not even having that option on the bench was a massive, massive oversight by Team USA.
It made no sense. From a Jets perspective coming out of this, and of course back in action tomorrow, Ken was at practice. We'll talk to him in a few minutes. You've got Kyle Connor, who's going to have a chip on his shoulder from being in the press box in the final game. You've got Connor Hellebuyck, who continued to play at a world-class level that came up just short in the gold medal game. That'll feel like he has something to continue to prove and obviously to get to his ultimate goal. You've got Josh Morrissey, who played so well and then was not able to play in the final game. And don't forget about Mark Scheifele, who should have been on the team in the first place that had to watch all of this. The Jets have done so much so far at this point, and we know it's really going to be about the playoffs and how they're able to do. I got to tell you, I think that the aftermath of this tournament in a lot of ways is great for the Winnipeg Jets, and that like these guys are going to be on a little bit of what we've been calling a bit of a revenge tour, if you will, on the rest of the National Hockey League, coming back together to prove a lot of people wrong about them individually and about their team.
It might have been the perfect tournament. if you're watching it, you're like, this is played out exactly how I want it. Let alone, hey, maybe you got a preview of Parayko Morrissey for the next couple of years as well.
With
and
the
I don't know, I'm just
exception
saying,
of Morrissey not being able to play.
Besides that,
was
that was the one bummer there. But at the very least, too, like Josh, I mean, he was, especially when Makar was out, he was their best defenseman. And then he's at least got the knowledge of, and I think maybe not the motivation, but just the confidence boost that comes with, if I had any doubts, there aren't any more, that I'm one of the best defensemen on the planet right now, and I can, perform when the stakes are the highest. So when he was out there, I thought he had shown himself really, really well in this tournament, and Canada missed him when he wasn't in the lineup. For Hellebuck, despite the loss, that was about as great as you could have hoped for out of him. Like, he gets a little more experience in those high pressure situations, unfriendly atmospheres, going up against the best of the best. And outside of the first goal he gave up in the tournament to Finland, he didn't give up a softie the rest of the way. And he was just head and shoulders, just like in the regular season, head and shoulders above every other goalie that was at the tournament. So I think Jets fans can be really, really positive about how he played. And then, like you said, the chip on the shoulder of, I couldn't get it done, but I know I can play and perform at the highest level when my team needs it. So they've got that with him. Kyle Connor the same way. And then, Mark Scheifele, Vengeance Tour 2.0, about to hit your nearest city starting Saturday night. He's he didn't take place in this one, but I saw a poll online about who's going to suit up for Canada in 2026. And I think Mark Scheifele is going to make an early stake to a claim to a roster spot. He might not be one of the original 6 announced, but I'll be pretty surprised if we don't see Scheifele as an Olympian for Canada in 2026.
Well, I'll tell you what, the best way to do that is, because listen, a lot of people, it was so funny talking to people here at the tournament, and they were just like, wow, Josh Morrissey's so good. I might want to turn into a Jet game once in a while. I mean, they're the number 1 team in hockey. You might know this already. Scheifele, I think, knew that he didn't get the benefit of the doubt before. You cannot count on that. The greatest way that you can assure yourself to be in that mix and to be on the right side of the decision-making process is go out in the spring and help your team win playoff series, come up big in the biggest moments, because this was essentially playoff hockey, Game 7 hockey, and that is what that I think is what the Canada brass is going to be looking for, and he and the rest of his teammates are going to have a chance to prove that very soon when we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And it is interesting to note, and Ken's going to join us in just a second, Morrissey and Hellebuck are traveling back to Winnipeg. They won't be with the team in St. Louis. Kyle Connor wants to play. And just the minute I heard that, I mean, I might be hammering a Kyle Connor Scheifele prop tomorrow in that game tomorrow night. We will see. But listen, Brandon, a whole lot of fun, and man, it's going to be exciting heading down the stretch. Trade deadline coming up, and then of course the playoffs just around the corner as well. Listen, a lot of we've been talking Olympics, 4 nations on skates and plates, and now we transition back to business.
Yeah, it's going to be an easy transition for the NHL too, because we get things started with Detroit, Minnesota. So it's like Canada, US, Red Wings, Wild. Are we really missing a beat at that point? We'll I mean, it's going to be a weird transition, but I think we'll see some fireworks in the trade market sometime soon. So that should be interesting, and maybe he kind of kickstart some of that there. But I might see your Kyle Connor prop on Saturday. Maybe I'll raise you a Kyle Connor, Rocket Richard long shot ticket there. If he's going full John Wick mode here and wants to get right at it on Saturday, I might take a look and see if I can
KFC Revenge Tour props. I'll talk to my friends over at Coolbet and get that cracking. Brandon, thanks for doing this, bud.
Sounds great. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Good stuff. There's Brandon Rewucki. Check out Skates and Plates wherever you get your favorite pods. All right, Kenny's locked and loaded. Before we bring in Ken, a huge thanks to our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned and operated for over 60 years. Folks, if you have a move coming up, let our friends at Rolly's, a great sponsor of WST, take care of it. Maybe they'll even move your stuff in the WST truck that you'll see on the road right now. Head on over to their website at rollys.com. Top right corner, you can request an estimate. When you do there, make sure you put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for your next move and for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And then let them know where you're moving, when you'd like to move it, and what needs to go. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn around quickly with a great quote for you to lock you in and provide the white glove service that Rolly's is known for. For your next move, make it Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollys.com. Of course, looks like it's going to be warming up a little bit. And that might mean looking ahead to projects once this snow gets out of the way. And that might mean a call to Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town. If you need a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, chain link, welded wire, wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, Wallace & Wallace has the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town, one perfect to match your home and add value to it as well. Give them a call, 452-2700. They'll be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also check them out online at wallacefences.com or see them in person and pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kennison. And just before we bring in Ken, shout out to Donnie and the gang down at Manitoba Battery. Of course, Donnie and the folks have been getting us through this winter. We've had amazing feedback from Winnipeg Sports Talk customers that said, I'd heard about Manitoba Battery. I popped in. Man, I got an incredible deal, way less than I would have paid at one of the big box stores, with incredible service. And a few of our customers realized that you don't even need to head in because they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside this perimeter in the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. Manitoba Battery, 2 locations, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive, or order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's keep the conversation going. Chris Pronger coming up in a few minutes, but first up, Ken Wiebe joins us now of the Winnipeg Free Press. Back at home, I see you did get a little bit of sun. Trip was good?
Yeah, great to be with you, Huss. Definitely a great trip. Got back a little bit late Tuesday night. Nothing like a 90-minute wait for your baggage when you get home. But again, first world problems, recharged, ready to roll, soaked in the hockey, enjoyed all of it, Huss. Fantastic game yesterday. Definitely wish I was in the building with you. I wouldn't have been in your seats, but would have been great to be in the press box or in the building for that one for sure. But man, what an event! What a job by Canada, and just a fantastic event overall. Connor Hellebuck absolutely fantastic in the in the game itself. In the event, he was certainly the best goalie in the event for the duration. Something he will come back to and bring an incredible experience. I'm with Brandon. I think we've seen the Mark Scheifele Vengeance Tour. Now you're going to add a very hungry and somewhat frustrated Kyle Connor to that mix. I can't imagine that he will do anything but respond accordingly. I think that he's going to be incredibly driven down the stretch to, Kyle, I spoke with him during, after he was named, leading up to the event. Four Nations was always the appetizer to the Olympics for him. Obviously, he's not going to like the way this ended for him, Huss. And hey, he has to take some of the responsibility. He did not play to his best in the event. He only had the 1 assist in the 3 games. But to me, this is a massive mistake by Team USA not dressing Kyle Connor in the final. Saw plenty. I mean, you would have seen it yourself, Huss. There were a lot of times in that game where Jack Eichel, who is one of the best players in the NHL, would have loved to have looked to his left when having the puck on his stick and seeing a guy who's a perennial 30 to 40 plus goal scorer on his wing. And that's no disrespect to any of the players on the team. This is, 4 great teams, to be perfectly honest. But not having Kyle Connor in the lineup was a massive whiff for Team USA. And, on the flip side, us, you're wearing the Josh Morrissey jersey, just absolutely, devastating for him to not be able to suit up in that game, throwing up all afternoon, as Scott O'Neill pointed out to us, during the avails today. Absolutely, gut wrenching for him to be so good in that event, especially how well he played in the absence of Cale Makar. And I mean, as you mentioned earlier, if you're just waking up now to Josh Morrissey being one of the top defensemen in the NHL, this is wake up territory. Might want to tune in once in a while to the games. And same applies to Jacob Slavin. For the people saying, oh man, who's this Jacob Slavin? Guy's been the best defensive defenseman in the NHL for probably the last 5 years. So anyways, don't mean to go on a tangent here, but the Jets, they're going to benefit from all of the experiences from their players, positive, negative, disappointment, jubilation, all of those things. And two, before we turn the page and focus solely on the Jets, incredible, showing overall in the big picture, broader scheme, for all, what a great Manitoba contingent. They're part of that, championship club with Mark Stone, Stanley Cup champion, now gold medalist. Seth Jarvis having 5 of his best buddies drive. Huss, did you run into them at all? I gotta ask you. I wondered if you might have found a chance to raise a beverage or glass with the boys.
Last night, we hung around in the suite afterwards, watched all the festivities, and then kind of went out. There was tons of Canadian fans in and around the Bobby Orr statue.
Right.
And we went into this bar that we'd actually been in between the games on Monday. And we went upstairs, and I think it would have been absolute pandemonium if the U.S. had won. Because Canada had won, I think a lot of people had cleared out. So we'd set up shop, and then we realized, Ken, that right above us Team Canada was rolling in.
Okay.
So everybody was there. Sid was with the cup. There are a bunch of pictures. But so whatever, this continues on. We're in the lower level. And then I just hear this, Hustler. And sure enough, like, hey, what's up? And they're like, hey, we're from Winnipeg. And it turned out they were there. They just had a great time being a part of the celebration afterwards. And awesome. They piled in the car. So, Winnipeg was well represented. I should give a shout out as well to WST or Roy Mack, who was in the chat last week saying that he was saying, I'm in Montreal. I'm going to the game. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Well, I got the same thing after. Hey, Hustler, what? Sure enough, Roy Mack was there at the game last night as well. So
amazing.
Winnipeg was well represented on the ice and in the stands last night. And I'm with you. It was interesting to see from Stone's perspective. And the one thing that Stone has never had is blazing speed. And that game was so fast. It was interesting to see John Cooper kind of go with more of Mitch Marner, who had a chance to sort of resuscitate his tournament,
right,
which had sort of gone downhill despite scoring the OT winner against Sweden. But I thought Jarvis played really well. We should mention Travis Sanheim from Elkhorn.
Too, yeah.
He played a big role on that club. But again, just gutted for Josh that he wasn't able to play. But again, I think every one of those players is going to have something to gain from the experience. And Mark, as we mentioned, I think is going to be a little bit on a mission to continue proving people wrong and make sure that he's not on the wrong side of the ledger coming up. You were down at practice today before the team heads to the one interesting note I see Remis mentioned is that Scott O'Neill said Josh Morrissey and Connor Helleb are going to come back and recover. They'll meet the team when they come back from St. Louis. Kyle Connor apparently wants to play.
Yeah, Hassan, and the beauty of that is that I think that Scott O'Neill actually said he wanted to play before he was a healthy scratch. I think he had said he hadn't talked to him after the decision was made for him to not play in that final game against Canada. So, and that's not surprising. Kyle wasn't getting the regular 20 minutes a game, even when he started on the top line with Eichel and Tkachuk. So this is not surprising to me. Kyle is a very determined and focused individual. Not surprised that he wants to be in the lineup on Saturday. And that's not to say that Hellebuyck and Morrissey don't want to be in the lineup, but I mean, they obviously played a larger role in the event than Kyle Connor did, and they don't have the disappointment of being a healthy scratch in that last game. So I think it was a smart call for the Jets to allow Hellebuyck to have a couple days to decompress, spend some time with Andrea and the kids and relax, and for Josh to spend some time with his wife and get back and sort of allow your body to get a little bit, more recharged and rejuvenated. Most of their buddies and teammates, spent a lot of time on vacation while these guys were playing in this high pressure, it wasn't a high profile event when it began, Huss, but when you look at the level of competition and what their bodies would have gone through over that span of time, this was always a wise move. I think Eric Comrie was always going to be starting this game. Again, the Jets didn't say anything publicly, but we know what the numbers are, and we knew that Connor Hellebuyck would be leaned on for at least 3 starts, which is what he saw in this event. And literally 5 goals allowed, I think, in those 3 games. He played at an elite level. It was time for Comrie to get in the game anyway. But Scott O'Neill also, my colleague Mike McIntyre asked if maybe they might give more than just the 1 game break, thinking maybe they give them San Jose off, and O'Neill's like, no, those guys want to be in. They don't need a second game off. So Morrissey will be back in on the back end, provided his health is up for it, and I suspect it will be. I mean, from what we've been hearing, the virus is absolutely terrible for folks who got it in that event, and lots of players had to go through that. So, I think it was a smart call for having both those 2 guys head home. And for Kyle, you can understand why he'd want to get right back on the horse and get into these last 26 before the playoff games get rolling here. And Huss, these are the facts. The Jets are going to need those 3 players to be among their best players throughout the stretch run and into the playoffs if they want to go where they want to get to. And that's playing meaningful hockey, and not just at the end of April, but also in late May and potentially the middle of June.
Yeah, that is the goal. And as I said, I'm fascinated to, hear from all the players at some point when they come back, but also just see what this can do. I mean, this team already, I think, had a chip on its shoulder from the beginning of the season based on what happened in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. And we've seen what that's turned into through 56 games. But in particular, and we're talking about the most important players on this team, Connor Hellebuyck, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, every one of them, I think, leaves this event, even though Mark didn't play in it, with an even greater motivation to continue to put the Winnipeg Jets on the map as a real Stanley Cup contender. And as we've talked about, in Mark's situation in particular, but also for Kyle Connor, who will have something to play, there is absolutely no comparison for elite high-level performance and success in the Stanley Cup playoffs when it comes to putting yourself at the front of the line for this international best-on-best competition. Hey, just before we kind of talk about more moving forward for the Jets, I want to get your take and perspective on just how big this is for hockey and for the NHL. Based on what we saw, record-breaking TV numbers south of the border, and interest in this game far beyond hockey fans, if you will, and what this might mean going forward. One thing I know it means is we're not going to go another 10 years without best on best.
Yeah, bang on there.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll have a better finger on the pulse for this because you are in the States. But I mean, for me, came home, catching up on PTI is talking about the 4 nations almost every single day, and this is not a regular occurrence. I mean, even though ESPN is one of the national broadcasters, so I think the interest level, and even too, one of my best childhood friends has called me, and he talked about how his CEO was texting him during the game yesterday. Hassan, this is a my friend is a very much a hockey guy, but his CEO is not a hockey guy at all, and these folks are weighing in with they're loving what they see. I mean. And the beauty of hockey, Hassan, this. I mean, the TV broadcasts are fantastic, but hockey is one of the great sports that if you see it live, it's at an even different level than what you're seeing on TV, even though, the advancements in the broadcasting and everything else. But just to see the speed and the size and the physical nature live is something to behold. So for me, I think it's a great opportunity. And Huss, I love the fact that there will be 3 best on best events in the next 4 years after going 9 years without, right? That will keep hockey front of mind for people. But not just in the short term, but to me, Huss, I think this is one of those events. I mean, having been lucky enough to be in Vancouver for part of the Olympic Games, seeing the women's gold medal game for hockey, being in the building for the quarterfinal and the semifinal, it's the kind of event that can help grow the sport. And again, I'm not trying to suggest this is at an Olympic level, but the type of competitive nature made it such that the players were playing at a commitment level that was like at the Olympics. So for me, when you have that layer of investment, I think it can only mean good things long-term for the game. And I think that some of those benefits you will see immediately, but you'll also see the benefits down the road. But I mean, the other part too, I mean, we talk, this is an NHLPA event, Huss. I'm going to tell you right now, and you know this from being in the building, I would say that the HRR is definitely on the rise. And for people that were wondering about how they could get to $110 million caps, it's events like this that help plant the seeds for long-term, sustainability and growth on the financial side. And Huss, we've talked about this for years. Like, let's not kid ourselves. The NBA far had surpassed the NHL in terms of both ratings and salary structure. And I'm not here saying that the NHL needs to have, $50 or $60 million players, but it's time for those players to kind of level up in terms of their, sort of narrow the gap between MLB and NBA and, even NFL to that, for that matter.
Well, and how do you think that's going to happen?
It's got to be
through media rights, through television. I mean, the NHL cannot squeeze fans anymore. I mean, that's
no.
their problem. It's all been on the back of the ticket buyers. That's not the case in Major League Baseball, in the NBA, and even the National Football League. And if this can captivate a U.S. audience in a greater fashion and add more people to that pool and make those media rights more valuable, that is how they will get there, in addition to putting on some more great events like this. I'm not sure. I brought this up when we were talking on the Lock Shop earlier today. I really wonder how the Olympics will compare to this. And I'm not sure, Ken, that moving forward, that the World Cup of Hockey put on by the NHL and the NHLPA might exceed the Olympic experience. Listen, the Olympics are unique and special because it's the biggest sporting event in the world and everyone's paying attention to. But the fact of the NHL rules, NHL officials, and I know NHL officials will be at the Olympics, but it is a IIHF event with different rules.
Right.
I'm not sure that once this gets expanded, that this might rival or even surpass, at least within the players, because it was so good, it was so well officiated, and it was truly, I don't know how you would get any better games or any quality of the product that was put forth over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to monitor, right? I mean, I think we've gone so long without having the Olympics that it's going to be hard to, like, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm not ready to provide my rubber stamp just quite yet, just because I remember being in the building.
It up. Yeah,
I know what you're saying, and I like the take. I just want to be careful on the recency bias on this for sure, because I know what the Olympics have meant to players previously. But I mean, we grew up in an era where Canada Cup was all that we had to watch. So you didn't have the Olympics with best on best. So I can certainly understand how people get wrapped up in it. And again, we need to have more teams in it. We need to have some of the great players. We're on the sidelines for this event. We're not going to have that when it comes to the next World Cup, or certainly not as many world-class players not being there. And to your point, I mean, with the games being in Italy next year, it's going to be hard to get the same ratings based on what time the games are going to be shown, right? I mean, they're either going to be happening in the middle of the night or when people are at work. So you're not going to have the same opportunity to have mass appeal to the audience for some of those games. So I'm with you on that front, but I want to see what the next Olympics looks like before I'm ready to definitely dive in with both feet. But I certainly understand where you're coming from. And to be honest, it's better for the game when the players are invested to this level, because only the game and the fans who watch the sport will benefit from that taking on that sort of magnitude, where 3 weeks ago, people were wondering if this was more than a glorified exhibition game. Well, we saw pretty early that it meant a lot more than that to every single player that suited up. And quite frankly, even those players who weren't participating were fully invested, Huss, in watching games, even if they were on a beach in a Mexican or a Caribbean country at the time and had to look for it, right? Like that's the beauty of this. Like talking to players who weren't involved, they were glued to it, whether they were on the radar for the next Olympics or not. If you're a guy who loves hockey, you're tuning in and you're loving what you see. And quite frankly, Huss, you want to be part of it.
Well, listen, Ken, I did a little copyright infringement on you for about the last 3 or 4 months for people that were questioning how this event was going to be. I mean, like we wait for 10 years for best on best and people think that it's not going to be like what we saw. Was insane.
Wake up territory, man.
It didn't take long for those people to realize I will take the L. I'm all in on this. And then, I mean, the one thing that made last night so much more important, and listen, for us here feeling it from a lot of, shall we say, ugly Americans, I mean, it was there was so much more than just a hockey game involved in this. And I see a lot of people say as great and historic as the 2010 Olympics and what comes with being Olympic champions meant to the country. Like this had 72 Summit Series vibes. And I know we weren't around at that point, but we've all heard the stories and seen the videos and know that there was so much more to it. And, adding that into, I think, made it somewhat of a perfect storm that I think hockey and the National Hockey League can really benefit moving forward, coming off what was, I mean, a little bit of everything when it came to it. But I mean, as I said, I got here Sunday night. I turned on the TV on Monday and I'm flicking around and Bill Guerin's on for 20 minutes on freaking Fox News. I mean, it was literally everywhere. And, here in Boston, I mean, obviously there's people coming in from all over the place, from all over the United States and lots of Canadians to watch the games. But by all accounts, it didn't matter where you were. This was the story in sports by every single metric, and I got to tell you, the game and the league is so much better for it. Ken, bringing it back to the Jets, fill people in. I know we talked a little bit about Kyle Connor playing and with the schedule for the guys in. Looks like Adam Lowry is able to return. What's the latest on Morgan Barron? Give us a little bit of an update from practice as the team, heads out to St. Louis.
Surprised you. I mean, again, we didn't want to get into the politics of it, but how about the mic drop tweet from the governor of the 51st state?
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, don't want to get into that.
The irony thing of this, and again, not to get political at all, but I mean, Trudeau was so done. I mean, he basically had to quit, and he was finished. And through Trump trying to emasculate him and insulting all of us, he inadvertently has probably cranked up that guy's popularity by significant amounts when it was over for him. So anyways, just another side story. I don't want to get into that, but it is sort of a funny, like this was such a
tweet,
divided
though.
country.
My only point. It was a good tweet.
Oh, I'm sure he was working on that. Those two bozos going at it on social media has been kind of one of the more entertaining part of all of this. But
sorry about that.
All good.
Back to Morgan Barron. So Morgan will not play Saturday, Huss, but I see a lot of progress. So at the end of practice today, he spent 10 to 15 minutes with Marty Johnson doing some extra work and a lot of extra shooting. So, we don't have the full, we know it's upper body and we know it's from that massive hit on Kirby Doc. But what I'm seeing from Morgan Barron is that he's getting his conditioning back up and he shot a lot of pucks with, fervor. So to me, I don't think that I don't know the timeline yet, but I don't think he'll be out for much longer than this. So what we know is this. So after going into the break, Parker Ford and Brad Lambert sent back to the Moose. Adam Lowry will be activated. That will give the Jets 12 healthy forwards. It will give them 8 healthy defensemen, though Josh Morrissey will not be one of them. So one of Ville Heinola or Hayden Fleury will be scratched. Other than that, Capo Kakinen will go and back up Eric Comrie, who will start in the game on Saturday, presumably against Winnipeg or Joel Hofer, as we expect Bennington to get the night. I haven't seen anything out of St. Louis. I don't know what the status of Parayko is, but so for the Jets, what we saw today, Heinola was filling in for Kyle Connor on PP1. So, one would wonder if that meant that he's in, but I would also say too, Huss, I think he was just a placeholder for Connor in that situation. If he was going to be running the power play, you think maybe he'd be running the second unit. But I mean, again, they may have just been going through the reps. They have the morning skate on Saturday. We'll have full clearance there. But it looked like Logan Stanley will be playing with Dylan DeMello. So Colin Miller will be playing with either Heinola or Hayden Fleury. That's the only lineup decision that is kind of looming here, or wasn't fully shared by Scott Arniel today. Other than that, the lines look normal, or they will look normal when Kyle Connor will slot in. Iafallo will bump down to the fourth, and then we'll see what happens. I know that my timeline's been filled with, get Lowry back on the second line takes. But to me, having him play with Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton after missing the time that he did in those 8 games makes the most sense to me. If they want to go back to the well and see about Lowry with Perfetti and Ehlers after Lowry's back up to speed, by all means. But that line was really rolling. Let's not forget that line was getting it going before. So let's just see how it plays out. And, I think it's probably good for the Jets to play a Central Division rival, and Huss, St. Louis got to be hungry. I mean, we saw Bennington play. You saw it firsthand. Bennington plays like that down the stretch. All of a sudden, that team that's 8 points out, they're thinking about 2019, and maybe they're, stealing the 8th spot, and then it's Winnipeg and St. Louis in the first round. But a lot has to happen for them to get themselves back in the race. So there's going to be a level of urgency displayed by the Blues that the Jets are going to have to be ready for. But Huss, just to tie the parallels together one more time, and you saw it from being in the building. I mean, every single player that watched the Four Nations face-off, specifically the championship final, only is reinforcing what Scott Arniel and the coaching staff has been preaching all year long. How was that tournament won? Through suffocating defense, and the smallest of breakdowns leads to almost every single goal that was scored in the 5 goals that were scored in the game, right? So puck management, team defense, ability to create offense from defending, those are at the core principles for the Jets all year long. Now you have the best on best and the elite of the elite doing it and showing that commitment defensively. It's only going to reinforce the message from Scott Arniel and his coaching staff that has been well received through 56 games this year. But Huss, what we know is the games are going to be harder in the final third, and then they're going to get even harder again. So it's important for the Jets to kind of get back to where they were before the break, and where they were before the break was the hottest team in the NHL. So I expect them to be sharp out of the gate, but I mean, there'll be a level of urgency displayed by their opponent. So now it's about getting to your game the quickest and puck management and being smart and being disciplined and all those things. But all those things have been a strength for the Jets all year long, but now it's about them getting back to those core values as they get ready for the hardest part of the season. And, from talking to the players the last couple of days, Huss, these guys are eager to get back at it. They know what is at the end of the rainbow, and they want to keep playing when the games matter the most.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it kind of feels like they're starting all over again, but this team is on an 8-game heater. Could make it 9 in a row tomorrow, and with a win, would be able to get 10 on home ice against the Sharks on Monday. Wiebe, glad you had a great time. Glad you enjoyed the tourney, and glad we'll have you and Rennie doing it up after Blues and Jets tomorrow as the NHL season resumes. Thanks for doing this, pal. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, my pleasure, and great to have you have Prongs on. Send him my best. One of the great humans in the sport. Always love talking hockey, and glad you're going to be able to pick his brain a little bit here.
You bet. Going to be great. Thanks, Ken. There is Ken Wiebe. Tomorrow after Winnipeg Jets and St. Louis Blues resume the season, you know where to find them. Kenny and Rennie with post-game coverage of the Jets. Yes, Chris Pronger is coming up. A huge thanks to Princess Auto before we do that. With a lot of Canadian pride from coast to coast today, well, Princess Auto has a lot of Winnipeg pride, synonymous with the city of Winnipeg, the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium. And, of course, Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg. and now coast to coast, but with 3 locations to serve Winnipeggers and Manitobans. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and, of course, Brandon for our friends in Westman. That's where you'll find the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in store or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. This was a rough tournament. There was a few scraps. A lot of people a little worse for wear after it, but not too many teeth out. Maybe a couple potentially in those fights. The reason I bring up teeth is because our friends at St. Vital Dental Center is an unbelievable spot for you and your family to get all of your dental needs. Serving generations of Winnipeggers in St. Vital. They've got a new location or a recent location at 167 St. Anne's. Beautiful facility with free parking in the back. And, of course, my pal Dr. Terry doing amazing work with a fantastic staff that is waiting and ready for you to serve you. Everything from pediatric dentistry all the way up to seniors. And they'll do anything that you need when it comes to the wide array of dental needs and dental services, including dental implants, which you can find out more over at their website. Check them out online, stvitaldental.ca. If you were like me and had spent too long from going to see the dentist, I suggest you do that and don't let it go too late. And there's no better spot to do it right now in Winnipeg than St. Vital Dental Center. Check them out online, stvitaldental.ca, or give them a call to pop in for an appointment. And hey, the guys at F Apparel, great partners of ours as well. We've got spring just around the corner, wedding season coming up, graduations. F is the place with custom suits beginning at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories in town. Check out their website at fapparel.com for the latest on their grad specials, where you get a free shirt and tie with any suit for a 2025 graduate. And, of course, great deals and special discounts for wedding parties when you get your suits there for the big day. It's all waiting for you. 190 Smith Street downtown. Check them out online and make an appointment to come in for a fitting at fapparel.ca. All right, let's welcome in a guy that knows a thing or two about winning gold medals. Pleasure to welcome Chris Pronger in to wrap the Four Nations here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Chris, thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing great. My pleasure.
What was that like for you watching such an epic tilt, knowing how many times you were on the front lines of that Canada-USA and international hockey battles?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great for the game of hockey. Great finally get some good PR for the league and for the players, and just the passion and energy that the players played with. Really brought it to the forefront and showcased our game in such a great way that I'm sure we're going to be able to build on that moving forward.
You know, I've got to ask you, just before we sort of dive into the game itself, I mean, you're down in California right now. You're living in St. Louis. What was this week like coming out of Saturday night? And how many people that maybe weren't normally talking about hockey were talking about this game, this tournament?
Yeah, there was a lot. The theatrics of Saturday, obviously the fights, and then just the style of play and the game, the energy, the building, the atmosphere was great to see, and just again getting you more than just the regular hockey fan, getting some casual fans, getting some new fans, and growing the game in that regard. You need, if we're going to put Canada as the big bad wolf and U.S. down here to get them up on this playing field to help grow the game, so be it. It's great for the game of hockey, and certainly put a little pressure underneath the Canadian boys. And we saw a fantastic hockey game last night. And you go from 2010 with the golden goal by Sydney to an OT winner by Connor McJesus McDavid. It's like a passing of the torch. It's pretty cool.
The stuff sort of writes itself. You mentioned the word pressure. You know this better than anyone. What is it like to put that Canadian jersey on in best on best competition. And what sort of a burden is that on the players that are representing the country at any time, never mind right now with all the political stuff surrounding everything?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really necessarily call it a burden. I think as high-level athletes, as elite athletes, you've got the right players there. They welcome the challenge. They welcome the pressure. For the most part, most of them thrive under that pressure, and you've seen that time and again with the respective NHL clubs. So to be in an event of this magnitude and play in this Coronation Face-Off that people thought was going to be an all-star game, I think we quickly saw that was not going to be the case. We saw the passion and the win at all cost mentality come to the forefront. It was great to see, and as I mentioned earlier, it's allowing the NHL and the powers that be, the NHLPA, to build on the product, build on what the excitement that's been generated by this tournament, and I think it's been a carryover of last year's playoffs. I was really pleased with the NHL playoff last year, the Stanley Cup Finals, and just all that kind of encompassed that. It was a lot of fun to watch. The energy and the passion they played with last spring, summer, and now culminating into this tournament. And hopefully we can continue to build and grow on the game that we all love so much and get more people excited about what's to come.
You mentioned people's expectations, Chris. Listen, I'll be honest. I mean, the minute they said that this tournament was on, I was fired up about it. I thought it would be great. We really hadn't had a legitimate best-on-best competition since the Sochi Olympics. And there's a generation of players like Connor McDavid, like Nate McKinnon. I mean, they were on Team North America for that World Cup before. So, I mean, it wasn't really best-on-best. But I guess the fact that it was in season, and you know how important the Stanley Cup is, there were doubters. Like, did you expect it to be as good and as intense as it was, or were you surprised?
No, I think you see the best players in the world are that for a reason, and that's their competitive drive and their will to win. And once you start putting pride on the line and things of that nature, and you're wearing your country's colors and emblem on the front of your chest, something takes over and you leave it all out there. And I think we saw that.
I mean, I want to get to the new stars, the current stars, obviously McDavid with the OT winner, but Sidney Crosby truly is a Canadian hockey legend, and arguably when it comes to international hockey, maybe the best ever. Thoughts on how he's still doing it at this time, and your memories of playing with him in 2010?
Yeah, I think his style is timeless. Just he's such an incredibly hard worker. You can tell his preparation, his attention to detail, how he goes about his business, how professional he is day in, day out. Whether it was, when he was 22 years old in 2010 and even before that to now 37 years old and, still playing at a high level. It's great to see. It's great for the game. It just shows, the face of the league and he can show these younger guys that are coming up and starting to become the face of the league, the McDavids, the McKinnons, the Makars, and even on the U.S. side, the Matthews and the Kachucks and people that have taken it to that next level, how to do it day in, day out and really showcase what the league's all about.
Being in the building last night, what just stood out really from the beginning of the tournament was the incredible level of speed in all of these games. From a defensive perspective, what did you make of the way the teams, handled playing defense, and in particular the job that the Americans did trying to eliminate 97 and of course Nate McKinnon with the all-world speed that can absolutely kill you if you make the slightest mistake?
The Americans played incredibly well defensively, even last night. Up until that goal, 97 really had not done anything in 2 games against the Americans. They did a great job of protecting the middle of the ice, forcing him to the outside. He got the breakaway goal on Saturday early, which was almost a wake-up call for the U.S. team to really kind of tighten up the middle of the ice, force them to the outside. started to play a little more physical on him, and really didn't hear much from him late in that game. And then again last night was pretty quiet, had a couple of opportunities, but was pretty quiet up until, again, with great players, it just takes one chance. And he was able to capitalize on the one great opportunity he had.
You know what? You mentioned the way the United States defended. We see a lot of Brock Faber being in Winnipeg with the Wild and the Jets playing quite often, and he really, since the moment that he stepped onto the ice into the NHL, has shown that he's going to be a star. I think it's pretty clear that he arrived. But from a defensive perspective, the nuances of doing what they were able to do, and in particular, I just wanted to get your thoughts on a guy like Slavin, who does not get a lot of attention, but seemed to be just a masterclass defensively. And then, of course, Faber and Zach Werenski with what they've been doing.
Yeah, he played really well. His gap control, his stick positioning, the angles that he took, the angles he forced, and the areas that he forced the opposition to go to, was when you look at how to defend and teach it, he did it to a T. And I think that the way with which they went about their business and how they played the game, from their first game against Finland through to Canada, Sweden, and then this game, they probably played the best of any team in the tournament as it relates to the defensive side of the game and just how they defended, how they protected the front of the net, how they transitioned pucks so quickly. And, I think there's a lot to learn from how they play the game.
What did you make of the Canadian defense? I mean, obviously, Makar missed a game. I mean, I think everyone in Winnipeg heartbroken for Josh Morrissey that not only did he miss the game, I mean, he wasn't there at the medal ceremony. I mean, he was obviously we said he probably had to be on his deathbed to miss that game. But who stood up for you on the Canadian blue line? And maybe a quick one about Harley, who wasn't even on this team and essentially came in out of the bullpen twice in this tournament, and I thought acquitted himself quite well.
Yeah, he played really well. Coming in an adverse situation like that, I thought he played really, really well, as you said. I think once they got Makar back in the lineup, you can see the matchups and the defensive pairings really kind of solidified themselves. The Taves, Makar was clearly the number one unit. Then you had Morrissey and Parayko as the number two, and then you had, and in this case, then it became Harley, Parayko, and then you had Sanheim and Doughty as the third pairing. And I thought they played really, really well. Once they got into their proper slotting in where they should match up against the top lines of the other teams.
I got to ask you about overtime. I mean, you mentioned 2010, that the golden goal with Sid. What's it like in the dressing room after 60 minutes in a winner-take-all game, along with guys that you don't normally play with week in and week out? In fact, you're playing against them. Tell us a little bit about what you remember from that and what must have been going on last night in that Canadian room.
Yeah, I think it was just the foot was on the other shoe. Last night, Canada had to score the tying goal, albeit not a minute to go in the period, but beautiful pass from Mitch Marner, buy some time, cuts in the middle of the ice. Nice little sauce pass over to Bennett, who made a beautiful, beautiful shot to score. And then, just biding your time. Binnington made a number of key saves, not only late in the third period, but then again in overtime, holding the fort down until Canada can find a way to get that goal. And, it's not how many saves you make, it's when you make the saves. And he certainly did it up the right time last night.
You mentioned Jordan Binnington. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Canadian goaltending and, a legitimate question mark based on the last few years. I mean, you're in St. Louis regularly. You see him a lot. We know what he was able to do in 2019. But my God, I mean, there's something special about particular athletes that are able to just come up with their greatest performances in the brightest lights under the most pressure. And I know we won Game 7 on the road in the Stanley Cup, but the same building last night, Jordan Binnington did a similar thing for his country. Wow.
Yeah, there were after Saturday's game, there were a lot of broken ankles with people jumping off the bandwagon, and he was taking a lot of jabs in his direction after all three games, frankly. And, I think he, again, as we've seen in the past in these tournaments, he played his best game in that championship game. And frankly, the whole team rose to the challenge. The U.S. put up a heck of a fight. And, I think you love to see players of that caliber bring their best when it's the chips are down and it's that type of do or die moment.
Chris Pronger's with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Moving forward, Chris, I think it was quite clear that hockey fans in the sporting world were starved for true best on best, considering how long it had been. Where do you think the game goes from here? We've got the schedule, but I guess this is a short tournament. There was only 7 games in it. How much of an impact do you think this will have for the league, the Players Association, and hockey in general, especially in North America, moving forward after the last 2 weeks?
I think that's with the announcement of the Olympics next year, and then World Cup of Hockey in 28, the Olympics in 30, World Cup of Hockey. You're going to see this, and they're going to be able to build on this tournament, use this as a template, and really promote the game of hockey, promote the stars of the game, and showcase exactly what these players are all about, which we just saw. The will to win, the competitive drive, the speed, the pace of these games, the talent, and frankly, the physicality. We still love to see that in the game, and these players certainly showcase that.
Do you is there a future for the All-Star game? I mean, I know it's going to be on the calendar every odd year. What made this so great was that it was literally the exact opposite of what the game had sort of become over the last number of seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big All-Star game. And the way it has kind of evolved, it's going to the 3-on-3 format, I think, put a little life into it, but it's still with the time off that these players already get. It's a way for the league to bring in sponsors and advertisers and things of that nature to kind of showcase the top players, but certainly going to need to reevaluate that after this tournament and really figure out how best to do that and what they can do to kind of bring everyone together in this type of manner. I don't know if this is the best idea yearly to put these players through this type of event. It's going to take a lot out of them. These players, some of them are going to come away with some injuries, and yes, it sucks for their NHL teams. It sucks for the fans, but we got to grow the game in some way. And this is, in my opinion, the best way to do it is to showcase the passion, the skill, physicality of our sport. And I guarantee they can build on what they just saw.
Well, I'll say this. I think part of what made this so great was the fact that it'd been so long. I'm certainly not suggesting we'll take another 10 years before we see this, but I think there is something to be said for the event not happening every single year. So it has it has a bit of a cachet. And frankly, every 2 years, guys are ramping up knowing that this is my next opportunity to be on that team, to be amongst the best of the best. Because I'm sure you could tell it's an incredible honor to get that call to be there with your peers.
Absolutely. And then you look at, how devastated guys are when they don't make the team, or when they don't get the opportunity to participate because of injury or what have you. So, again, these players are prideful. They want to be on these teams. They want to be showcased. They want to be able to play with the best and challenge themselves and play at that highly competitive level. And, you saw it tonight or last night. You saw it throughout the course of this tournament. These are highly skilled, talented, driven players that at the highest level want to be challenged and to be at these best on best tournaments and to really come together with their countries and playing for your flag and your fellow countrymen. It's a tremendous honor, and you saw that throughout the course of this tournament.
Everyone's still talking about the first 9 seconds in Montreal, and of course it was was spearheaded by the Tkachuk brothers, who right now in the NHL are close to unicorns. There's not many guys that can play at that level that also have that edge. You see them all, obviously you've probably seen many of them. They're early in their career. They're in the St. Louis area. But what do you think of the impact of players like that? How special and in demand they'll be going forward in the National Hockey League? And will we see more guys like that, or are they just a different breed, being sons of Keith, knowing what he did in the NHL?
Yeah, they're definitely a different breed, and come from good stock in that regard. But I think they just prove how valuable they are, how important they are to the chemistry of the team and the dragging. I heard Mike Sullivan talk last night. He drags everybody in. They drag everybody into the fight, and whether you're ready to go or not, you will be soon, because they're going to get the other team agitated and ready to go, and they're going to play a physical brand, an in-your-face brand of hockey, and it's exciting and it's fun, and it gets the crowd alive, it gets both teams alive, and it really ramps things up, which is great to see for the game, and really brings out the best in everybody.
Well, I just got to ask you, what do you think it does? Whether you're a Canadian player that's not normally that style, but get into that game, or being a teammate on the Americans, I wonder how that might rub off on some of the other guys, maybe come Stanley Cup playoff time, where that is so important.
Yeah, I think it's, and even in the Sweden game that the U.S. lost, they were still, Brady was still playing hard. Matthew didn't play. Brady was still playing hard, got a little banged up, driving the net. It just, they only know how to play one way, which is the beautiful part of it. They don't take nights off. They don't take shifts off. They go hard. And I think that's something to be respected and something to be proud of, that I know Keith is very proud of that fact, that they play hard every night and they bring it each and every night. And I know their teammates love them. They love the way they play. And it really gets their respective teams involved, and on nights when maybe you're not feeling up to it, or maybe you want to take a night off, and you see whether it's Brady banged up and he's still going hard and doing what's necessary to be effective, that's going to challenge you to do in kind. And I love to see it, and I know for a fact that there's 29 other teams that would love to have either one of them.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Chris, listen, it is we can't thank you enough for coming on after such a big game, to have someone with the pedigree as one of the greatest that our country's ever produced. It's been great. I just quickly on the way out, I know you've been a lot more active on social media. Fill people in on what you're up to these days, and how they can check out some of your takes and everything else you got going on.
Yeah, probably doing a lot more, hockey stuff and leadership stuff on X at the Chris Pronger. Do stuff on Instagram at Chris Pronger, and LinkedIn Chris Pronger, and just kind of post things in threads at Chris Pronger, and just kind of post things that I'm thinking about on a daily basis, experiences that I've had that I think people can learn from, and then just impart any wisdom that kind of feels like the message of the day and what I think people need to hear, and try to be as positive as possible. I think too often we delve into the negativity of, oh my God, the world is ending. We lost the game on Saturday night. Oh, what are we going to do? And oh, look, the sun came up and we won an overtime game, and the world, Canada's a much better place all of a sudden. And so, I think it's just a matter of staying positive, trying to find the good. I didn't always do that. And I've had to learn over the years myself. And so just try to keep it real and try to let people know I'm in the same boat as them. I wake up and some days I don't feel great, but guess what? I put the work in, I'm disciplined, I'm consistent, and try to, much like the Tkachuk boys, drag everybody in and pull everybody along when I can.
This was such a pleasure to have you on, Chris. Thanks so much, and have a great one.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Oh, all right. Good stuff with Chris Pronger. Awesome to have him join us today. We've got a lot coming up. We have got Hacksaw, And we've got a marble race, and my guy JBM, Jake Bolonois, who's been with me here in Boston with Coolbet. We'll hit those Coolbet lines and have a little bit more on just the experience of being here yesterday. But you know what Hacksaw says? It's Beer Friday. Let's get a 1919 ready for him and for you this weekend. A big shout out to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right, just checking out the chat. Dan Jets fan, Retro, Mary Jane says, yeah, everyone loving Chris Pronger. That was really cool. Shout out to Remis. We've been working on getting him for a while, and what a day to have Chris Pronger join us after Canada wins the Four Nations. We're back to business, though, with the Winnipeg Jets gang. Tomorrow, Jets and St. Louis push into the playoffs. Now's the time to get ready for the postseason, and I would suggest before the big rush happens, get down to Royal Sports and get your jerseys, get your gear ready for what will hopefully be a really fun and hopefully long run into the spring in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Royal Sports is the #1 spot for fan gear. Of course, that's where I picked up this beauty, this Josh Morrissey jersey for the trip here to Boston for the Four Nations. But when it comes to Winnipeg Jets gear, they have literally everything, including an amazing collab with New Era on one-of-a-kind Winnipeg Jets hats that you will not find anywhere else. Colors that are unique, special patches with the history of the Winnipeg Jets, all waiting for you at Royal Sports, in addition to the new Bomber gear that's coming in for the upcoming season, and the best from around the National Hockey League. And, of course, they are the hockey superstore in town for over 50 years, family-owned. 750 Pembina Highway. Give them a follow on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And, hey, how about I got some texts and pictures from folks that were at various Boston Pizzas last night, and it looked like that was one of the all-time nights. We all remember where we were for the 2010 gold medal game, and I think that was similar last night at BP's throughout Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. Of course, we're right back at it. Jets Pick a Player contest and your chance to enter to win that Jets trip to go see the team play in Vancouver next month. So tomorrow night, we're back at it. Buckle up, get down to your local Boston Pizza for Winnipeg Jets action. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, and of course, gourmet pizzas at your local BP. And if you're staying at home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, keep an eye on the chat. We'll be opening up the marbles, it looks like it is opened already. So that's going to be coming up. As I said, Jake's going to jump in with me in a couple minutes, but let's bring in Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And I know we normally talk NFL with Lee on the NFL Notebook, but let's face it, we are a hockey nation, and hockey was the biggest story in sports the last little bit. Lee, you've been following hockey for a long time. I would love your perspective on last Saturday, last night, the two epic games between Canada and the U.S., and just how much hype and attention hockey was getting south of the border.
Hustler, glad to see you that you're standing. I thought you probably closed a few pubs down in Boston overnight. I know you. You look that way. You sound like you had a good time, but what a phenomenal week we had. What an unbelievably great game it was. Everywhere I've gone this week in San Diego, I usually get stopped at the fitness center and grocery shopping, and people want to talk either Padre baseball, spring training, Dodger baseball, evil umpire, or all things NFL. Hey, people just stop and just want to talk hockey, and that was really, really cool. I sent a memo to Gary Bettman. Let's just cancel the All-Star games from going forward. Let's just make this a global international tournament every January or February, slot it in where the All-Star game used to go. And the only time you wouldn't hold it would be the Olympic years. But they've hit the jackpot. They've hit something really special. And as I've said, the next thing I want to see is them have a 4-team tournament and redescribe who the teams are. You know, Team USA, Team Canada, spectacular. Form a Team Nordic, which would be Sweden, Norway, maybe Finland. Then do a Team Europe, and let's incorporate the players from Russia, from Belarus, all Germany, and what other great Euros are available, and let's just make it work, because this is a global shot that they can take to put the sport on the front of everybody's mind going forward, not just in Toronto and Vancouver and Halifax and Edmonton and Yukon Territory. I'm talking about here in the States and obviously globally. To the tournament specifically, I don't know how in the world those goaltenders saw those pucks to make those saves, but we got done with those two goaltenders. What the Blues goaltender did was just absolutely stunning. Obviously, what Connor Hellebuck did was phenomenal. The traffic in front was just amazing. Guys didn't give up bad goals. Guys gave up goals they never saw. It was tremendous. It was wide open. There was some hitting. There was no thuggery. Nobody wanted to make a mistake. Nobody wanted to commit a penalty. It was, God, what that was as classic as it could be, I guess. And I was too young to appreciate the Flying Frenchman and what the old Montreal Canadiens used to be. But man, that looked like a throwback to the Bleu Blanc Rouge and Fire Wagon hockey that the old guys used to tell me about when I was broadcasting minor league hockey back in the day. So it was special. And in terms of the response, Hustler, you know, the TV ratings here in the States were phenomenal. Now, I don't know what last night drew. We probably won't know till this evening what the overnight numbers were on television here in the States or what they might be in Canada. But the last Friday's game, including the fights and all that, had 4.4 million, which is a staggering amount on a Friday night. And it destroyed the NFL Pro Bowl flag football TV ratings. It decimated the NBA TV ratings, just beat their brains out, and almost came even Steven with the NASCAR Daytona 500 ratings, which is a one-time exception on the calendar here in the States that draws big crowds. And that was a 7-hour broadcast because of rain delays and then obviously a ton of wrecks at the end. So, I mean, what the NHL got accomplished, and I don't even think they realized what was out there for them to get, has just been amazing. And this next set of numbers, maybe it gets to 8 million here in the States. And then if you add Canada's numbers, God, this might take this thing to 12 to 15 million viewers in North America, which was just a phenomenal number. So
yeah, I think that will be the case. You know, we just got from Adam Seaborn, it looked like the number in Canada was just shy of 7 million, you know, which is a boost from 5.7 for the USA-Canada game last Saturday night. But I'll be honest, I thought that actually that would be higher. But I think we're in a scenario with the attention on it in the United States. This might be the first time where U.S. viewership actually exceeds Canadian viewership, and we will wait to see that. Presumably, at some point over the course of the weekend, we'll get that. I mean, I get you. I mean, I guess if we want to be greedy, getting it every year would be great. It might take a little bit away from it, but I'll tell you what, I'm fine with what the NHL has announced, where next year they're going to the Olympics. That's 26. In 28, we're having a World Cup. In 30, there is the Olympics. In 32, we've got another World Cup. This was too good and too successful not to keep going back to your point, Lee, and it will be a big part of growing the game. And I'll tell you what, anywhere, anytime, any place that we see the U.S. national team against the Canadian national team, people are going to be ready for it. And what happened this week was a big part of it. And then the one thing that I'll tell you, obviously, there's been a lot of political BS, most of it from south of the border, that I think added a lot to it. And Canadians were already intensely proud of their hockey heritage, but this added a lot to it. And I think that is going to be something that, you know, played a part into it, because there was a little bit of 72 Summit Series vibes, albeit not taking on the communists. But it's just crazy how, you know, it's sort of turned into these two great allies becoming real adversities in real life. And that played into it as well. So it was really a perfect storm for the NHL when it comes down to it, and it'll be up to them to continue to build off this now that the regular game is back.
Yeah, and obviously there are now great American players, just like there have always been great Canadian players. And I thought about this during the course of the game last night. I mean, there is Ovechkin headed to the Hall of Fame, and he's not on the ice as part of this. And I thought, boy, there's so many really great Russian players who are innocent victims. You think about the International Ice Hockey Federation. They have banned Russia and Belarus again from more international play, 25 into 26, just because of Ukraine. And there's just so many innocent athletes that have been kind of ensnarled in this horror of what's gone on in Ukraine. And we have a lot of bad rhetoric here on this side of the border crossing because of this guy, the president. And it's a lot of empty rhetoric. I'd like to see Trudeau stand up and just hold a press conference and invite Minnesota, North Dakota, all the border states. If you want to leave the U.S., come to Canada, we'll welcome you on board. And by the way, we're annexing our next door neighbor, Alaska. It will now belong to us because it's right next door. We're just going to take it. I'm going to see what kind of response we'd get to that. But I'm so tired of the rhetoric down here politically. I can't see straight. But the hockey, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. Lee, let's just quickly touch on. It is a kind of a slower part of the NFL calendar. Going to be getting ready for the combine and the draft coming up. But right now, it seems like there's lots of jockeying ahead of the draft when it comes to QBs. In particular, we're hearing the name Matt Stafford being thrown out, potentially traded. Rams looking for a first rounder. What do you think the likelihood on that is? And just maybe if you could quickly touch on a few of the interesting quarterback situations around the league.
Let me just quickly go through the roadmap here. This is unique. The New York Jets this week gave Aaron Rodgers and his agent permission to take their contract and talk to other teams who might be interested in trading for Rodgers. They're not going to get a high draft pick or anything, but maybe they're going to get some compensation rather than just releasing him outright and taking a cap hit. So they are letting Rodgers, quote, make visits, maybe starting this weekend. And Rodgers is not going on vacation to Egypt this time. He's going to take part in that scenario. The Cleveland Browns, they're dealing with two crises. One is the defensive end, Myles Garrett, who wants to be traded. And I've been told that Detroit and Philadelphia have both contacted the Browns about the elite pass rusher. The price would be 2 number 1 draft picks and maybe a player to get Garrett out of Cleveland. He is tired of the rebuild. He's tired of all the losing. The other piece of the Cleveland conversation has to do with Atlanta. Either they're going to trade or they're going to outright eat contract and release Kirk Cousins. And Cleveland desperately needs a quarterback. And Cousins has a relationship with Kevin Stefanski. So connect the dots on that. It probably will be at reduced money from what Cousins has been making there in Atlanta. The Rams situation, I find it hard to believe that they would move him. But Les Snead, the general manager, early this week went public and said, we would really like to build around a quarterback who's able to move the pocket and run. In other words, he wants a different guy rather than cement Matthew Stafford. That being said, Matthew Stafford is such an emotional warrior and such a leader for that franchise. The problem is the last 2 years of his contract, and he got money bumped to the front. The last 2 years, there's no guaranteed money. I was told he wants $25 million guaranteed this coming season as part of his salary, and then another piece of the 27 contract guaranteed. So that's a bit of an issue there. But geez, to trade him, you'd be trading away the trigger man, and I think kind of the heart and soul. So we'll see where that goes. Kansas City has given Travis Kelce till March 14th. Do you want to play or not? He has a roster bonus of $11.5 million coming, and he's been told you must tell us by March 14th whether you're going to retire or whether you're going to play. They want him back, but it's up to him. He's played so many extra games. He's played the equivalent of a season and a half of playoff games. So there's a wear and tear factor on his body, and obviously Kansas City is trying to recover from the pasting they took at the hands of the Eagles during the playoffs. And the last football story, this has really got a bad vibe to it, is the NFL has now formally begun the investigation into all the accusations against Justin Tucker, the record-setting field goal kicker, about sexual misconduct. There are now 16 women who worked at 8 different health spas in and around Baltimore that he went and did business with, where he was sexually or tried to get sexually involved with the massage therapist. There's 16 women, and they'll come from front and center. And the NFL has already started the probe and already started interviewing, quote, the victims. I think Justin Tucker's going to get hit with sanctions, much like Deshaun Watson had, which means his career in Baltimore is over. Also found out this week that Baltimore had told their players at the height of the Deshaun Watson situation, the Ravens' John Harbaugh had a team meeting and told them, we now have a zero tolerance policy. If you get involved in anything of this nature, you're going to be removed from this team. I don't think Justin Tucker ever puts on the black Ravens helmet again. And I think the league, next thing we'll have is the league is probably going to stand up and say, these are the sanctions because we believe you did this, much like Deshaun Watson did this. So really ugly story.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And, Tucker was a guy that, seemed to be pretty squeaky clean and was probably on his way to the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest kickers of all time. And this is I think it's shocking, but also this could be the end of his career because he wasn't particularly good last year after the incredible start that he had, and now it comes with all that baggage. Hacksaw, thanks so much for doing this. I'm glad you enjoyed the tourney. We'll look forward to catching up next week. Race to the trade deadline, and of course, getting closer to the draft in the National Football League. You have a great weekend, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
And in your mailbox, there will be a 1919 and a frosted glass. And yes, I will probably provide you some food, too, from Boston Pizza, because I do always pay off my bets, unlike the co-host on this podcast, we're in red jersey.
Hey, I just keep winning, Lee, much like the Canadian national team. Have a great one, pal. Thanks for doing this. There's Lee. Hacksaw Hamilton. All right, Marbles is open. We'll give you a couple more minutes to get into that. Let's get to Why Not Question of the Day. And Remis has this up in the chat. Why Not Question of the Day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Which goal was more iconic, or the win was more iconic? The McDavid Four Nations goal last night, or Sidney Crosby's golden goal in 2010? And, a huge percentage favoring Crosby's golden goal, which has a special place in Canadian history. The fact that we're even talking about a question like this, though, speaks to, how invested so many people were for maybe more than just the regular hockey reasons. And as Remis has been saying all week, very correctly, how long it's been since we've actually had true best on best competition. So that's what the poll is saying right now. I'm looking at, let's get to a fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. Fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market with no added fees. What you see is what you pay. And for folks like myself that once in a while can't use a pair of tickets, the number one spot for season ticket holders or ticket holders to sell tickets on the resale market with the best in customer service and fast and quick payment straight to your account the very next day. All right, fan feedback. Rat River Rebel. 2010 was a years-long lead up to the Vancouver Olympics. Great point. And hockey was the highest profile sport in the game. T. Will, our WST Four Nations correspondent, I totally agree with this. This does not happen very often when me and T. Will are on the same side, but he's right. If you have the best on best more than once every couple years, it becomes too normal. I think the fans and players, he says the fans and players won't take it as seriously. I think it'll just lose the special nature of it. The Olympic Games every 4 years, World Cup every 4 years, and then the off years, they're going to have to figure out what to do with the All-Star game because unfortunately, the bar has been raised so high by this incredible international competition. Anything else is going to seem very much less than. And that's still an issue that they have to figure out. But I think every 2 years is perfect for it. Some other ones, let's see. There's some. We always get into this political stuff, which basically is inevitable when we start talking about all of this. I did see Jets post said if Russia isn't allowed to play, then USA should be allowed to play. I don't know about that. One thing I didn't mention to Lee, there was talk about potentially having Russian participation in this. And I think it's important to note that both Sweden and Finland said if the Russians are in, then they're out. So easy for us here in North America, far away from that, to say things like that. But that's still a real issue, especially for the Finns that share a border. And if you want to know why Finland has mandatory military service, it's because of who's on their border, and that's Russia. So anyways, interesting stuff to do it. Great stuff in fan feedback. We've been hammering it all show long. Amazing feedback from all of you. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, Remis is getting marbles ready. We'll do a last call on marbles, and Remis can pick that out. But let's, Jake, grab a headset. My guy, Jake Bowen-Moss from Coolbet. You know him from regular appearances on the Lock Shop, and now for the first time ever, a live appearance on WST. How much fun was that last night?
Yeah, an absolute blast yesterday. I mean, the whole week's been pretty crazy. I don't know the last time I've been on WST. I think I'm definitely back in Qatar a couple times we jumped on.
Yes, of course. That's right.
Maybe I've called in one more time, but it's been a little while, so it's good to be back here and chatting with the WST folks. I know I jump in the chat every now and then, and I get a few people mentioning me, so that's always nice to see. Yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible week, and last night's game was just like, it's left me speechless for a lot of things, because it's just so hard to describe the atmosphere and, the moment and just like how it all unfolded. I've said it a couple times already, like, you couldn't have scripted it better. Like, Hollywood couldn't have wrote that script. Like, they would shush that. They would shush that out the door. Like, that ain't happening. And sure enough, like, on the biggest stage in the best on best, we get the scenario where Connor McDavid is the golden goal hero, and we get almost like a passing of the torch. I think Sid will be back next year for the Olympics, but it does feel like one of those moments where, we talked about 2010, and then now we're talking about this goal, and it's just like, they did it again.
For a new generation, this is going to be much like that Sid goal, certainly for the youngers. But as I said, with all the political stuff around this that ramped it up, and listen, we were on the front lines. I mean, we got out of that Uber yesterday and walked down the street. Like, I'll be honest, I'm just going to be straight with you people. I flipped the bird to more people in 15 minutes yesterday in Boston than I had in the last 10 or 15 years of my life. I mean, there was like a tension on the streets, and there was a lot of people that were giving it to us in some of the more disrespectful and rude ways, and that's what made that game. It felt like the stakes were so high for everyone that was there representing Canada in red, but also for us just as a country, as an independent sovereign nation. I know that sounds insane because we're talking about a hockey game, but there was a real feeling of that last night.
Yeah, listen, to give you a little peek behind the curtain, I know a lot of you are used to coming on here and listening to Huss talk a whole lot. Well, Huss was pretty quiet yesterday. Like, we head down to the game early. We wanted to catch up with some Canadian fans, and we just popped into a bar, and Huss wasn't saying a whole lot. Like, he was pretty intense, and a lot of it had to do with what we were getting on the outside. Like, we got down to the rink, and like the first guy we saw in a USA jersey was like 51st State and all that junk, and I'm just like, whatever, buddy. And yeah, Huss,
that was the first of a few birds that were flipped.
Yeah, Huss was not too thrilled about that, and yeah, he was fired up, he was intense, and a lot of us were, and that atmosphere in that building was, I don't know how it came through on TV, but it was loud in there. And, Monday was almost like a precursor to that, Huss. Like, when we went to the USA-Sweden game, which, inevitably meant nothing at that point of the tournament, they were very loud, very, national pride, loud anthem, a lot of cheering, a lot of chants. And, it trickled into the biggest game of the tournament in Canada versus the U.S. And, yeah, it was good to kind of quiet the crowd, especially that tying goal to get it to 2-2, and then that third period was probably one of the more stressful moments of all our
Felt
lives.
like overtime. I know Jake was all over me because every 5 minutes I'm like, this is going to overtime. But I mean, we kind of were already in overtime. And, the moments that will stand out to me outside of obviously the goal, I mean, the jaws of all of us at those Binnington saves where it seemed like it was over on a couple of occasions, and yet it wasn't. And you can't give Canada. You got to make the most. You better hope your boy Austin finishes a little better in the playoffs than he did last night on Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, listen, when you rob, arguably the best goal scorer in the world twice at point blank, like, you're a big game player. And Jordan Binnington showed up after all the scrutiny he got in this tournament. A few weak goals. We talked about it. He felt like he was due for a weak goal in every game. He really played well. And in a moment where, a guy who's already won a Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final in that building, to come back and do what he did in overtime, to give McDavid the chance to score that game winner, I mean, it was incredible.
It was legendary. We joked afterwards, having fun, celebrating. I mean, if anyone would have told me, that's you look into the future, you're going to be with a bunch of guys singing the praises of Jordan Binnington and Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett.
Oh, yeah. Bennett.
That's what it was. And that is why, this game can bring everyone together, and there's nothing like, overall for, when it comes to Canadian hockey. Now, listen, just before we get to marbles, we are back. The lines are back. The NHL is back. Jets getting St. Louis. We'll get to some of those if you want to get those up in a minute. But just while we're here, for any of you that are playing at Coolbet, or if you haven't and you're interested and you're playing, give it a try. Use the promo code WST. You'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. But make sure you check the promotions tab, because having been working with Coolbet for the last 3-4 years, the one thing that I'm lucky enough to be a part of and been around with a number of Coolbetters that have simply played and won some of the most incredible contests and sports experiences around, including this trip. There's some Coolbetters that were here with us through the promotions at Coolbet. Of course, the first thing that we did was go to Qatar, and there was 3 contests with 3 Canadians that went all the way there for the World Cup. So take advantage of it. Check them out. Promos, all great promos all the time. And, of course, we'll let you know here on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well on upcoming contests. And I was actually talking to Ange. We might be doing something special for Coolbetters for playoff tickets for the Whiteout in Winnipeg. Stay tuned to WST for that. As far as the games go, though, tomorrow, we are right back at it. It sounds like Kyle Connor is going to play. And I see we're at minus 130 for Winnipeg, plus 110. No one's expecting a Hellebuck Binnington rematch tomorrow in net, considering the way those guys played. But this is an interesting day tomorrow when it comes to sports betting, in that many American players and many players from the Canadian team that were in last night's epic overtime game in the Four Nations might not be in the lineup tomorrow, and that could add a few nice little angles if you can get in on a good number.
Yeah, all things considered, you look at the tournament in and of itself, and, Finnish team and Swedish team were wrapped up on Monday, so they've had enough time to, recover, have some rest and relaxation, and get back to it this Saturday. But, with the way this tournament's set up, the final runs on Thursday, and 2 days later, they're back on the ice. Some teams in Saturday afternoon, in terms of Edmonton, and they got Connor McDavid. Who knows if he'll go tomorrow in Philadelphia. But yeah, just an interesting setup, and probably good. If you're on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, keep an eye on the local media there, the local beat writers. A lot of the times they'll be posting the lineups, and I'm not going to be shocked if Matthews and Marner are taking the night off tomorrow for Toronto.
Yeah, great news for Winnipeg, and this is interesting. We got it from Scott O'Neill. That Kyle Connor, even before the game, before he knew he wasn't playing, said he wanted to play. So Kyle Connor will be playing. Mark Scheifele is going to be chomping to get to bed. I think we don't have them up yet. I'm telling you right now, and maybe I'll even do a special Saturday WST offering. Because we're going to be looking at Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele tomorrow in that game for the Winnipeg Jets. But a full slate of games tomorrow. Let me just do a quick rundown of a few of the ones. The Leafs have a tough schedule. They're 3 games in 4 nights, all in different cities right out of the gate. And, they're in a big race. Leafs are plus 102 home dogs to the Carolina Hurricanes tomorrow. You've got Vancouver and Vegas. This was one we talked about in the lock shop. Vegas had a number of players that were either participating or injured. Shea Theodore out. Not sure whether Mark Stone plays in that game tomorrow night. Jack Eichel. Meanwhile, the Canucks in a dogfight for that 8th spot could potentially get Quinn Hughes back, who ditched the non-contact jersey in practice yesterday and didn't go to Boston for the game. Vancouver plus 140 in that. And of course, we do have the NHL season bets. We were talking about the Jets, the revenge tour that begins tomorrow. Jets are still 13-1 to win the cup, tied with the Leafs, Devils, Capitals, and Colorado Avalanche. Golden Knights plus 1250, Dallas Stars 10-1, Florida 9, and Carolina plus 650, Edmonton plus 600. And I will quickly take this opportunity to take a bow once again. That video to start off the trip was 3 for 3, including getting on Canada plus 185 to win the tourney. And then how about last night? McDavid or McKinnon, first period goal in Canada win, plus 600 for the people.
Yeah, listen, guys, the Chiefs may have lost the Super Bowl, but Huss's heater continues here. And yeah, he goes 3 for 3 on the Monday best bets, including Canada to win the tournament at plus 185. And then, yeah, last night he had the little, we called it the hot start. McKinnon or McDavid to score in the first and Canada to win. And both those guys end up scoring in that game, which was massive. But, yeah, I mean, it's a busy slate tomorrow in the NHL. But I'd say, yeah, definitely keep an eye to who's playing and who's not, because I think there could be a few maintenance days if I had to guess.
Yeah, and again, the one other thing that if you want to jump on right now that is up is the top combo. To me, I have been manifesting this for a number of months, and I said to Dusty and the rest of the Edmonton guys, well, it's great that Connor McDavid got his big moment yesterday, because guess what? Come the Western Conference Final, it will be Connor Hellebuck's moment. But right now, Oilers to make the Western Conference Final, Jets to make the Western Conference Final. It's called the Lock Chop Bowl in the combos, boosted from plus 725 to plus 825. We've been talking about it all year. Has to happen. And wouldn't that be amazing for our programming and the fellas? I have a feeling we might be getting together sooner as opposed to later if that happens.
Yeah, well, listen, the Four Nations I think was great for the sport of hockey, but a Western Conference Final like that would be great for Canadian hockey fans, especially in Winnipeg and Edmonton. So, and you know what? We should mention, Huss, the traveling that some of these fans did to get here to Boston was incredible. We talked to so many Canadians yesterday from all over the country, and a lot of people like finding ways to get down here, getting in the car, driving 11 hours just to see
11 hours. How about Jarvis's buddies?
Well, I didn't
30 hours.
30 hours from
with
Winnipeg.
some of those guys afterwards. I mean, just amazing. And yes, to every Canadian that came down here to Boston to deal with everything that was thrown at us, but walk out victorious. Shout out to you. Again, all the lines up on Coolbet.com right now, and keep your eye on the combo cards and the exclusives. We'll crank out something for the Jets tomorrow. All right, let's get Remo back in here. Jake, you're going to get to be a special guest. We'll give you a marble as well.
I appreciate it.
We have to have a little side wager here between the two of us on it. Well, Remo, I'll tell you what. Why don't, before Remis joins us, why don't we fire up Tristan Rivers' music, the official theme song of the marble race on WST, because it's not the weekend yet until the marbles drop on WST. Here is Tristan Rivers, and then we'll get at it.
Let me just fire one up here, just picking the correct one. I don't think we have a championship one.
Yeah. A queen, we are the champions style marbles song.
We have that one from the Tournament of Champions, actually, but it's very tailored, so I actually don't have that. But I'll do this one here.
Yeah, let's give her. All right, let's do this now, Reem. Before we see the track that you have selected, can you throw me in Hustler in all caps? Can you throw in Jake? Just put JBM in all caps. That'll be Jake Bolin Moss.
Okay.
And then and this is one time only. And this speaks to the tournament and how it does bring us together. This will never happen again on Winnipeg Sports Talk, I don't believe. But we need a marble for Connor McDavid. And I can't believe I'm saying this. We need a marble for Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, I think everything that you've said about Jordan Binnington in the past you got to retract it. I mean,
I'm not necessarily retracting it. He is a psycho. I mean, we're not completely overlooking his body of work. But I'll tell you what. I mean, I didn't say that he was going to blow it. I just said that any scenario is possible with this guy.
Oh, and how about some of the contact he took behind the net when he was playing the puck? For those who don't know Jordan Binnington's game, he plays the puck a lot. Like, he loves to get out of his net and be part of the game. He was taking a lot of contact behind the net, and we were getting nervous that we were going to see a crazy Binnington moment.
And I got to tell this, while Remis gets this ready for Jet fans, one of the things that I have to admit, I had to kind of chuckle, and I have spoken before about how the improvement of Connor Hellebuyck handling the puck has been maybe the most impressive thing. We know how hard he works on his game, but the turnaround, I mean, remember when we started? Mitch's handle in the chat was Helly's shock collar. We joked that Maurice would have a button when he went out to play it to get him back in the net because it was a disaster at times. Hellebuyck is being lauded by many of the brightest people in hockey about one of the things that was so impactful in that game on Saturday was just how well Hellebuyck had been handling the puck and moving it to the defenseman. So another notch in the belt to the best goalie around, Big 37 for the Winnipeg Jets. But it was funny because all I could think about was our conversations. And frankly, for the first few years of his career, just sitting in the stands, how nervous I would get when Helly did get out of the blue paint to handle it. It's a testament to the athlete and just how committed he is to being the best that he can be. All right, Reem, there's only one thing left to do. Let's get to the marbles. Where are we looking today?
Give me 1 second. I had a good one that I wanted to fire up here. I'm just making sure I close all my tabs. I got
get those tabs.
That's probably a good idea, Remo.
I got like 40 open here on 2 different windows.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay, let's gear down a little bit.
Listen, I know the feeling, Remo. I like day to day, I probably have like 30 tabs open. And like so many sheets that I'm not even using in the current moment, but I don't want to forget that they exist. And yeah, it's a nightmare.
You know it. Hey, we never give a shout out to Brandon Hagel for his Instagram story today.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
The lock shop.
It was that the group chat.
The champions group chat here. I mean, he went up a notch in everyone's book. Like, I wonder when Jordan Binnington comes to Winnipeg, are they going to do like a TV timeout thing where they acknowledge him and say, everyone cheer Jordan Binnington, and like Connor Hellebuyck's right there in the Jets net? Is that going to happen?
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay,
I was thinking that might happen, and then you mentioned that. I'm like, no freaking way.
Sorry. I thought maybe that would happen, and then
Remo, you know what I think they will do is like if one of your players was on the Canadian team that won, they might get a little shout out. So I'm thinking like Marner tomorrow night will probably get a shout out on the Leafs Jumbotron, like, congratulations on Four Nations Championship. But opposing team, I'd have a hard time believing.
Yeah, listen, at the game on Monday when the Jets are back at home against the Sharks, I think what they'll probably do is welcome back and congratulate Kyle and Connor and Josh for being a part of that incredible tournament, and then sort of move it. I guess I don't think the San Jose didn't have anyone on either of those teams. I think Granlund was originally on San Jose, but ended up going to Finland. Mm-hmm. So even the players, because I think obviously like the league overall, I think wants to highlight all of the players that took part in it. But Yeah, there you have it. The champion, Brandon Hagel. Reem, he has to be the guy that his, what do they call the Q rating or whatever for people to know about you and stuff. He went up massively because he was a guy that not a lot of people knew. He took that fight. He had the interviews saying, we don't fight for the group chat. We fight for our country. I mean, how do you not love that guy? And I tell you what, hell of a hockey player that was front and center throughout the tournament for Team Canada.
Shout out the chat, man. A lot of funny people in there.
Yeah.
Jay Miller, who is this dude? Yeah, I mean, listen, Jay Miller.
Jay Miller, get with it.
I get it, man. You head up to the Coolbet Canada socials, though. We do have a monster tweet right now from the reaction video from the game winner. That one is going nuclear. I think you actually reposted it too, Remo, on the WST socials. So
yeah, Hustler's been posting it. I remixed it on our Instagram. I mean, that was an elite job. Here, let me pull it out here real quick.
Yeah,
let's
play it, Remo. Let's play it.
You guys were going crazy there in the box when Canada won. You were ready, Jake.
Remo, I was not ready. I was so peek behind the curtain. I know we're running long here, but peek behind the curtain. I'd have my phone sitting in front of me, and I would lock it, but I would leave the camera app open so I could kind of be ready when something would happen. And then all of a sudden, the goal happens, and the presence of mind to have to go grab my phone and try to get an immediate reaction from the suite was not an easy task. But I'm glad we got it done because it's doing a great job right now. So.
Dusty. Yeah, this is pretty awesome.
Man, I get goosebumps just seeing that again. And then check our socials because we serenaded Sidney Crosby last night. He flashed the cup from the victory party last night and some other great stuff. I don't think I posted these yet. We got an amazing picture of Crosby and McKinnon with the cup. I'll throw that up after the show at some point a little later on and can tag you guys as well. But yeah, we definitely have gone long. Special championship edition from Boston of WST, but it's not the weekend without the marbles. How many marbles are in today, Reem?
Yeah, almost 300. Almost 300. Oh, we'll do that later. I see you in chat, Jake. I was gonna make you a mod. I had to pick a track here. I had a trouble picking one. This one was all right. Classic, vintage, concept. I liked this one.
Perfect. All right. Well,
let me fire it up here.
Once again, as Remis gets it up, cheers to all of you that are in the race today. Shout out to our friends at Shipman Associates for the championship WST hoodies, which are not for sale. You have to win the marble race to get one. Big. How about Kabilis' win the other day, right before our WST game? Rolls in as a champion to Canada Life Center to game. Now, Kabilis, you got to let me know when you want to pick that up as well. But I will be back next week. If you have been waiting on a hoodie, send us an email and we'll make a point next week now that I'm back from a crazy few weeks to set all that up. And hopefully you will be the first one across the finish line today and can get the WST hoodie as well. And I'll tell you what, I'll also throw in for this one, $50 Coolbet card for you that you can maybe throw down on the Jets to win the cup. Just saying, do whatever the heck you want. All right, we got almost 300 marbles in. Jake is in. I am in. McDavid and Binnington, one time only. Congratulations on Canada winning gold. Great vibe today. It was going to be one or the other, and we got the right one. Anyways, without further ado, let's get this marble race going and officially start the weekend on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Let's do this. All right. Now, I will say with this camera, it is going to be a little tougher for me to see. I'm going to move this up here.
Well, they are going over. They're going through these loop-de-loops here into an actual funnel, Hustler.
Okay, yeah. Next funnel. I like it. Now, who do we got here? Is that Brown Eyed Girl MJD?
Yeah.
Big Bruins fan, Brown Eyed Girl is. Oh, we've got some eliminations already. Oh, Jet Oil Tom, Gonzo. Let's see. Who's that in first? Naomi?
Leonard S. Norm G. Oh, a lot of marbles going over the top here.
Craig Smith now in first. What's up, Craig? ATP Wild. All right, now we're coming in. Craig Smith in the mix. Wasp World.
Yeah,
Wolf's World. Down. Oh, Jamie Stevenson, the dream. Look at this. James with the nice run. Now we're coming down. I'm not sure what we call this one. The cone? Some sort of story, but Craig Smith in first. Craig, Jamie Stevenson. Who's that in first? Tondra?
Todd 18.
Oh, Todd 18. I think Todd 18's a former winner, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Whoa, someone just got blasted. Oh, another one. Are you going out? No. So Todd 18. Is that Jen Cool?
Yes, Jen Cool.
Lock shop legend Jen Cool. Trying to make it happen. All right. Here we're coming down. Got Will's World, Todd 18, Jen Cool, James Stevenson, all here. Who's going to get blasted first? All right. There we go. Oh, blocked by the heart. These hearts are playing defense. Oh. Okay. Who is that? Craig Smith negotiated it. Craig has the inside track. Can Craig get in and get up on this Ferris wheel thing first? No. The SMA. Oh, no. That was a tie. Okay, so Ty and Craig right now are going back and forth. It looks like it's Ty. Ty is coming down the stretch. Will it be a victory for Ty? Nicely done. Wilf's World looking at second place, although not there yet and about to get past. But Wilf's World does come in second. Todd 18. Who's number 4, Reem?
Altered Echo. Altered Echo was yelling at us to start. He's got to get on a plane. So hopefully he's still here.
Nicely done. Jordan Binnington, 5th place.
Oh, nice work, Jordan.
Binnington is on a real heater.
I don't think I saw myself the whole time. But
A
I'm
real
glad I was
heater.
here.
No, I haven't seen myself either. No, but we're going to go in and we'll see how we did afterwards. Although there's been plenty of eliminations. There's Doug Phil, D-Mart. And as we remind you, there are some big days where we've got lots going on, and sometimes the marble race is a little late. Chill out. It's on YouTube. You can always take a break, go back, and watch it as if it's live. But Ty Petcow, 243. Nicely done, Ty. Ty, what you're going to want to do, send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Drop your phone number in there. I'll fire you a text or an email, and let us know what size hoodie you want, and we'll do that. All right, let's see how this did. So Jordan Binnington, continuing his heater, finishes 5th out of 300 in the marble race. Swervin Mervin, Braden Fanning, Craig Smith, D. McCulloch, and Lisa Foster, the rest of the top 10. All right, let's go down. Oh, Cosmic Tales MB. It's in Ross Ransby, Roscoe with a nice performance today. Ron P, Jeff Johnson. There's Kevin Kowalik.
Oh my God, look how long that one name is.
Stevenson, 30th place. You're right there, Jamie. Got worked at the end. Here's our guy, Wicked John. Hey, Wicked John, shout out for supporting our great sponsors at F Apparel. I'm glad you got your son's grad suit there. That's awesome. Hopefully he loves it. They do great work. We got Retro Winnipeg there. Kabilis. Man, Kabilis is just always a contender. Those really long ones, I don't know what they are, but let's see. We got Greg M. There's Doug Phil.
Oh, not a lot of finishers.
There were so many. Okay, so I think this is going to be basically a wash between us, JBM. I have a feeling we both got top rope.
Kicked early. Didn't even see it.
There we go, Cam Thang. This is
There's
just
JBM.
There's JBM. Bit of a graveyard. There's Hustler. I also got Wax.
McDavid.
Oh,
Connor McDavid.
Bozeman.
Gregory Liverpool. There's Bozeman. Bozeman and I have a bet every single week on this.
Okay.
I do encourage side bets from other WSTers. You should do.
I'll be honest. I think Craig got robbed.
Go down.
I mean, Larry
right
Alloy said Jake is very into the marble race. We're also watching like the smallest screen. I was just fighting it, trying to figure out who was up top, but Craig got robbed. Congrats to Ty on that dub, though.
Amanda, one of the queens of marbles in the city. Also top rope today. I mean, listen, it was about 30%. How many people actually finished, Reba, to 300?
84 out of 298, and Ty Petkow is in chat. He says, we just had an earthquake here in Vancouver while the race was going. Must have knocked me into first.
Right on, Ty. Right on. All right, well, listen, this has been an unbelievable, honestly, one of the greatest trips of my life. I got to thank our friends at Coolbet for making it happen. I hope everyone enjoyed sort of following along with us. And again, lots of great stuff up on the Coolbet Canada socials, my own as well, over at Hustlerama. And but Remo, I'm fired up to get back to it. And I think I'm going to get home just about in time tomorrow for puck drop for the Jets and Blues. And then we're back at it on Monday with the game day edition. Jets back in town, back at home against the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, I think that's the Amazon Prime game for Jets and Sharks. So
best team in the league, worst team in the league.
Yeah,
exactly what Amazon was looking for.
Other thing on Coolbet as well, I'll squeeze one last thing. And if you have any questions about Coolbet, feel free to reach out on the socials and the DMs. I will be there. I can answer some questions if you have any concerns or you just want to know what, kind of what it's all about. It's nothing too crazy.
Ladies, don't just do it to flirt with Jake. But yeah, if you do have questions, that's the one great thing. Customer service is great, and we actually have people that we know and work with that'll be there to take care of issues.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you know you're chatting with a human being and not just like an online bot. So I run most of the socials. It's myself or Patty with the responses. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. Even on my personal, Jake Bolin Moss, feel free.
Yeah, give Jake a follow as well, at Jake Bolin Moss. And that is going to do it for us. One more time from the Encore Boston Harbor. The sun is shining out there. The vibes are pumped for the Canadian contingent that is here. It was a great show today. And shout out to Remis. I'm doing an unbelievable job getting Chris Pronger today. How cool was that? If you just pop by for marbles later on, I would highly recommend checking that out. We had great stuff with Ken and Brandon and lots of talk about the experience of being there last night and the game itself at the top of the program. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that make the show happen. A special thanks to Coolbet for making this happen all week long from the Four Nations. Looking forward to more great experiences for both us and, of course, customers. And shout out to all of you for having a great part of our day here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Tomorrow, game day, 7 p.m. Winnipeg time. And then we're right back at it. Join us in the lock shop. You'll see Jake on regularly. That's on Edmonton Sports Talk at noon, Monday to Friday. And then 1 o'clock, we're back at it. Game day edition. Jets are back in town, pushing to the playoffs. There'll be 25 games left in the regular season on Monday. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend. And thanks for hanging with us on a big gold medal Friday here in Boston and all across Canada.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home! Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.